Okay,
For the record, the technical segment will likely just be me talking because I've got a crackpot theory and I'm very interested in sharing it.
sure, why not?
Also,
So,
I'm the programmer, so
yeah, it's true. You actually went to fucking university for this kind of thing. So, I figure the best place to start would just be with the many, 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 many technical issues with the game. Let's get this out of the way so no one has
oh,
to
we're starting on
fucking.
my segment.
Yeah, I just want to get this out of the way so we don't have to fucking talk about this as we're going through. Because, like, everyone's. Like, you've seen it. Everyone's seen the hundreds of glitches and bugs, most of which are incredibly funny and in no way actually affect the experience of the game itself. So
they
they don't really matter.
they are funny, but I will admit they shouldn't be there.
I mean, yeah, they shouldn't be there, but like, I am of the opinion
But I
that
won't. I
um,
won't.
unless it directly
Go
affects
on.
my gameplay experience, which most of the bugs don't at all, then I don't care. They don't affect my actual like enjoyment of game. Things like the crashes, yeah, that shit's inexcusable. There shouldn't be
Mm.
hard crashes when you're just entering a city because it's trying to load too much at once and just fucking breaks everything.
Yeah. So
Especially when you're someone
okay.
like me who turns off autosave and then loses 3 hours of progress because the game crashed because I threw a Pokeball at a Dreepy. Apparently, the game secretly autosaves too, and I could have recovered my file, but I didn't know that until I was already way past where I'd already gotten to anyway.
Yeah. So I have to like hold my opinion of a game shouldn't release with realistically any bugs because it's my main critique of games like Skyrim where I'm just like, yeah, the bugs are funny, but how much did you pay for this game? Like, like that is my big thing. But I watched the review yesterday from Digital Foundry
Yeah,
about all the like technical stuff and whatnot. And they did a comparison which interested me because the natural comparison is Breath of the Wild, given that that is the Switch's first ever game. It was developed on multiple consoles at once. It was in development hell, which is
yeah,
usually the bad a sign that a game will turn out bad. It was, you know, whatnot. But they compared it to another game, which was Arceus,
okay.
which I found interesting because I'd never thought of that comparison.
Yeah,
And
it's not a perfect comparison because of Arceus's
oh yeah,
section
they
world,
acknowledged
but
that.
yeah,
But it was interesting because the conversation was that Scarlet and Violet look worse than Arceus, which at first I was like, oh, does it? But then I saw the side by side comparisons and I was like, okay, that's interesting to me. And he started pointing out things like how in Scarlet and Violet, Scarlet and Violet, blah, blah, the pop in is horrendously egregious to the point where it's like a few meters in front of you. The frame rate cutting is also incredibly egregious. Like, ideally in a game, things like LODs, things like frame rate cutting, that's meant to be done when certain objects are at a certain size on the screen. So, like, an LOD will generally be brought in when an object is, say, cut down to 50% of the screen size and then 10% of the screen size and so on and so forth. Like, take in Breath of the Wild, you've got the mountain. I forget the name of it. It's called, even though it's in every fucking game.
uh,
Um,
yeah, who cares?
yeah, but when you see that from up close, there's tons of detail, everything in there. When you look at it from halfway across the map, that thing's big, but all those details are really realistically like maybe 10 pixels. So if you were to see that mountain, how it was loaded in from at a close-up distance, it would be like 10 polygons. Um, and he pointed out that in Arceus, when you're walking around Jubilife, for example, the water wheels and character animations, even from a distance, those are still going about 30 FPS. And it was all interesting me because I was thought, well, that's a good point because Arceus is an experimental title, completely fresh out of the box. It was developed at the same time as this. So realistically speaking, it should be either on the same level or worse than Scarlet and Violet because of all of its experimentations. And then it occurred to me So a lot of the conversation around Scarlet and Violet has always been Game Freak is lazy. You know, that's been everyone's heard that at some point. But I think the conversation is something different to be had when it comes to Scarlet and Violet, and it's not that Game Freak is lazy. It's that they have hit the wall of what their company allows them to do. So back on say the 3DS, Usum, they said that was the best they could do with the current hardware, which probably true, in all honesty,
Absolutely true. That
given
game,
given the 3DS.
fucking yeah, that game barely ran when you hit a double battle.
Yeah. Um, but I think when it comes to Scarlet, the problem is different because you notice in Scarlet there's a lot of things that are kind of cut out, and there are things that wouldn't have made it across from Arceus because they were developed at the same time. It's got the Monster Hunter syndrome of two games developed at the same time can't have the exact same features. That's just not how that's not feasible. That's not how that works. But um, when I look at these games, I think it's more that Scarlet and Violet are the the pinnacle of because it's clear that Game Freak has ambition. If they didn't have ambition, Arceus would have never been made. They would have done BDSP, and Scarlet and Violet would not have been an open world game. It would have just been another Pokemon game with routes, just this time in 3D. It's anyone who's actually played these games will understand that there is ambition in these games. There is a lot that Game Freak want to do. They just can't do it for some reason. And I think this game is kind of going to be that make or break point for the company and the entire Pokemon franchise as a whole, because this is where the ambition stops if they decide to keep the same like 200 employees, yearly game release schedule. Because it's very clear. Because if they struggled to get Scarlet and Violet to run, even with the egregious amount of performance saving they've done, they can't go any further because it's very clear the games have tech debt. There's probably spaghetti code given some of the bugs in this game, uh, and they can't keep relying on this contract work. So I feel it's very clear that after now that these games are out and after the DLCs and that come out, I would not be surprised if we see a restructuring in Game Freak and more employees brought on, more permanent employees and more experienced employees brought on, as well as possibly seeing them shuffle up how they do the release schedule and things like that. Maybe even like they will hire employees who are specifically for doing certain projects, like the Legends games. For all we know, in the future, that could be an entirely dedicated team rather than sort of crossing workers and things like that. Because it's not a case of the sales are going to manage anything. It's a case of the company itself is going to manage this because developers can only go so far. And if this is their wall when it comes to development, something's going to have to change in their development system. They won't be able to because it's not the Switch holding this game back. It's very clear on that fact. It's the fact that they can't push a game this humongous in a short amount of time with only a small workforce. That's not feasible anymore. And I think that's kind of going to be the big takeaway from Scarlet and Violet. Because if they were to keep trying to do it how this is, either the next game's going to have half the features that Scarlet and Violet does, or the next game just won't run. It just won't. Because they'd have to try and push more features in when it's clear that the more ambition they try to have, the more that tech debt starts to catch up with them. But that's my large thoughts on like the issues plaguing Scarlet and Violet. Because yeah, it can be said that they should patch this stuff, and their communication has been literally non-existent. I don't think they've even addressed a single one of these problems. And it's Game Freak, so
It's usual
unless a
for
bug
them.
comes along that is exceptionally huge, it's probably not going to get fixed. But
Duplication glitch might get fixed, but
that might get fixed because they are known for fixing ones like that. But things like oh, I can't even name them off by heart. But the other ones just probably aren't going to be fixed. I would be surprised if there's a performance patch. In all honesty, um, knowing them, they probably already moved on to the DLCs. DLCs might be what fixes it. which that's an entirely different conversation I'm not even going
Yeah.
to have. Uh, but yeah, that's largely my opinions on like the issues of this game. What I am happy about though is that the conversation seems to have already evolved faster than it did with Sword and Shield. Because back in Sword and Shield, it was the entire time it was just Game Freak is lazy, da 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 da.
Well,
Whereas
yeah,
this time
because
it seems to have very quickly evolved into maybe it's not that Game Freak is lazy, it's that how they're doing things just are not going to work anymore. They've got to change things. They've got to do something new,
yeah,
which
because
that's good. At least there's some maturity in the conversation.
a large part of the reason why the conversation around Sword and Shield was so unbelievably toxic is, and I'm not exaggerating, entirely Masuda's fault. Because he, during E3, had to sit on that fucking couch 6 months before the games came out and say that fucking little tidbit of information about the dex is being cut so we can focus on improving the quality of various things like animations. Because he said that, every single little thing in Sword and Shield was subject to the highest level of scrutiny because people
Yeah.
are fucking insane. That didn't happen this time around, which is why it was only once the games came out people were incredibly reactionary.
Mm.
So thankfully, they were mostly drowned out by people being like, something is clearly wrong. And I mean, most people with a cool head on their shoulders have known that management has been the issue for quite a while now.
Mm.
We know, I mean, because you actually like looked into various interviews and stuff. That's where that 200 employees thing came from, right?
Yeah, I think it was Master stated if he could, he'd ideally work with a team of 20 people.
Yeah.
Which that's not happening.
I'm so happy he left the company in June. Oh my god, I'm so happy he left the fucking company.
Chief Creative Fellow.
Yeah, which I'm assuming is just a figurehead
What
title, and
even is that title?
I don't know. It's a made up title they gave him. I'm really curious whether or not it was his decision to leave or if they gently persuaded him to please get the fuck out of the company, because every decision he's made since they left the handheld has been the worst decision for the company.
Mm.
Unironically
Like
ruining the games by like, no,
I
we have to keep the team small. No, it has to come out every single year, and more than once a year now, because fucking it's a miracle Legends is a game that's very good. It is an actual
mm,
miracle that game is good.
I like I said, my ideal hope is that when Masters are going up to Pokemon Company instead of working specifically at Game Freak. Because from what I've heard, there is also a lot of old guard. Game Freak has the problem that Nintendo has, where there is a lot of old guard there who don't want things to change,
Mm.
which is a big problem in a lot of games companies. But again, there's a wall that can be hit before people have to say, "Look, we either change or things are just going to get worse." Because there is going to be a point where a game is released in such a condition that people are going to start going, "This isn't worth it."
Yeah.
Because I think Scarlet and Violet is pushing that wall. Because look, if Scarlet and Violet looked like it does, ran like it does, but was basically Sword and Shield 2, I think it would not have broken a single sales record.
No, God no. I
It would have
wouldn't have bought
been
it.
horrible.
Well, I would have bought it, but I might have actually returned it if it was that bad.
Yeah, like so it is like if the next game is just like Scarlet and Violet but runs worse, looks worse, I think that's going to be the point where people start going, okay, no, this just isn't worth it anymore. There's only so far you can push your fan base before they will start leaving. Many games have learned that in the past.
Yeah.
Tons of them.
Though,
But
like,
oh,
so I'm also of the opinion that people who say, because I've seen a couple things going around lately, on Tumblr specifically, because Hellsite, of people being very indignant and high and mighty about not buying these games and saying
mm,
that imagine if the fan base had standards. And I need these people to understand that that's not how anything works. Not buying the game will not fix these issues because they are not, because A, it's Pokemon. Sales numbers will never take a significant enough hit for them to stop doing this. The reason third versions kept happening until 7th gen is because they don't care. Third versions always sold significantly worse, and they never stopped doing them until they would have had to start charging $60 for a third version that barely changed anything. And they knew that would never have flown, so they stopped. Like, not buying the game isn't going to do anything. Shaming people for buying the game and enjoying themselves isn't going to do anything. Get off your high horse, you stupid assholes.
What will do things, I think, is genuinely going to be the reviews.
Yes, it'll be reviews and online discussion.
Games companies, if anything, like a lot of them don't care about online discussion. A lot of them don't care about boycotts and things like that.
Well, no,
what a lot of them
boycotts
care about is that fucking Metacritic score. You know, as has been shown by companies will do incredibly sketchy things in order to raise that score as high as they can. And this Scarlet Violet is not the lowest Pokemon game. It avoids that by outranking Emerald by 1 single point, which upsets me. But I would not be surprised if that was a conversation in Game Freak's offices when the reviews came out. Was that our like Metacritic score? Because that Metacritic score can help drive sales. And this is a games company. They aren't satisfied with enough money. They are likely going to be satisfied with all of the money. That is consistent across a lot of the games industry. You can't call Game Freak lazy and greedy at the same time. Because if they were greedy, believe me, they could be so much worse.
Yeah, we'd still be getting full price $60 games. Or full price $60 third versions a year after that came out, instead of like, chunky DLC updates for $40.
Yeah, the fact we got cheaper DLCs is a big indicator that no, it's not that they're lazy, not that they're greedy. Again, a game's I think I said this in private, but if they showed off a Pokemon game that looked like Breath of the Wild, had a good amount of Pokemon. I'm not gonna say all the Pokemon because I don't believe it should contain all the Pokemon.
No, that's a terrible idea.
Had all the features people wanted, so it had difficulty scaling. It had, this open world theme. It had like a ton of stuff people wanted. Good story, all that stuff. That game that's a guaranteed record breaker for Game Freak. That's a guarantee. Because the entire conversation would just be, holy shit, we're finally getting the Pokemon game that looks phenomenally beautiful, runs well, we're getting all this gameplay stuff, we're getting all the difficulty we've been up in. So, the people that want difficulty can be pleased, and the people who want a calmer experience can be pleased. All that stuff. That would print them money. And the fact that it hasn't been done speaks volumes as to what the hell is going on there.
The only worry I have in that regard is if they just see the bad Metacritic and they take the wrong message from it.
Yes, because that is obviously the biggest fear.
People need to specify that the technical issues are the problem here, because everything else about the game is the best Pokemon has probably ever been, which we'll get to once we're done talking about the technical side, and I can start heaping the praise upon these games.
I'm happy that a lot of the reviews specify in their titles alone that the game is clearly ambitious, the game is in a step in the right direction, it has a lot going for it, but it's marred by those technical issues. And its graphics as well.
Yeah.
But everything else, those reviews are making very clear, like, yes, the game has huge potential. It's just weird how these other issues keep existing.
Yeah.
Which, thank God, I think this is one of the few game releases where I've gone through reviews and I'm like, I agree with most of this. Like, I don't think there's many reviews out there that I look at and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I agree with a lot of them, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that rarely happens.
Yeah, I fucking bet. And I mean, hey, if they need any proof that a good game can really revitalize a brand's image. Look no further than Sonic fucking Frontiers.
Yeah. But speaking about the technical issues, let's make the transition over to the technical gratuities, because this is where I want to talk about one thing:
Sure.
the fucking multiplayer.
Yeah, it's unreal how well it works. It's
The
insane.
everyone who has played Sword and Shield likely went into this game with an incredible degree of caution, because Sword and Shield's multiplayer, I wouldn't even call it functioning at sometimes.
It
The
wasn't
fact that
multiplayer.
sometimes raid dens wouldn't show up, the fact that the best they could do was like random people being broadcast onto your game, and that made the game lag. Um, and there was
Extremely.
like next to no interaction with them. Uh, the fact that even the trading felt clunky, like everything about that game multiplayer wise felt clunky. So the fact that now that Scarlet and Violet has come along, and it has schooled games like Animal Crossing and Monster Hunter when it comes to multiplayer is baffling to me.
Yeah, there's maybe one thing I have that is an issue with the multiplayer, and it's just that the pop up for someone trying to do a raid den doesn't last quite long enough. And if you're in a menu,
Mm.
it doesn't pop up for you. Like, that's it.
Yeah, like
If they just made it so that it popped up no matter what and like stayed on the screen a little longer, the multiplayer would literally function basically perfectly.
yeah, it's incredible. Like my only wish for multiplayer is just that it had a better way of joining people.
Yeah, I mean,
So that
fucking
say you had like a room, then someone was like, "Hey, can I join in?" You had a spare space, they could just like jump in still using the code. But I can see why that doesn't quite work. Um, but it's like I look at this game because when we first got to the city, when we got to those doors, I was immediately thinking, right, I'm gonna have to disconnect here
hmm
because when I go into the city, it's probably gonna be blocked from multiplayer. So when we both went in there, I thought, okay, well the city doesn't seem to be instanced. It'll be the school. So when we went to the school and we got the cutscene fighting outside the school, and both of us were still in multiplayer, and it was working, I was just immediately like, "What the fuck?
You're telling me I
How
can
is this
actually,
functioning?"
yeah, you're telling me I can actually make story progress completely independent of everyone else in the lobby because they've
Yeah,
properly instanced story sections?
like I went through. I think we went through that entire game in multiplayer in lobbies,
More or less, yeah.
even even playing Area Zero.
Yeah, the finale,
When
I
we got
was
to that
in
crater,
multiplayer.
yeah, like it was insane how well it worked. And even the fact that you can see wild Pokemon battles happen
hmm
right in front of you that
Yeah,
your friends are fighting is unreal.
even weather effects. I was watching Jeremy fight an ice cube last night, and it used Snowstorm, and the snow around them actually appeared in my game as well.
Yeah, it is ridiculous how well it. Because, like, Because I think that is one of the reasons why this game sucks so much in other areas, like technical wise. Because I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of effort put into that multiplayer.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with multiplayer systems before, and let me fucking tell you, God, that can break in the most interesting of ways that you've ever fucking seen. You can have the weirdest connection bugs. You can have all these great, like every feature has to be designed with multiplayer in mind. It has to be designed with the idea of another person is around in mind. It has to be designed with that connection to the server in mind. Like multiplayer is not a thing that you put in there and then you just ignore it. Like there are games that have fought with multiplayer issues for a very long time because of that issue
hmm
of just multiplayer can break in shockingly incredible ways. So the fact that when it comes to this game, the most like bugs multiplayer seems to have is stuff like when you're in a raid den and someone presses the kill button for their Pokemon and sends them out, they'll pop in the middle of the arena for like a split second.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Or like for some reason when you're in a wild Pokemon battle and your friend leaves the area, for some reason their bike will just appear. Uh, for reasons I've yet to understand. The fact that that is the biggest bugs in multiplayer speaks volumes of how hard they worked on it. Because easily, the multiplayer could have been the most disappointing part of this game.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, without a doubt, probably my favourite part of it.
Yeah.
Because they just hit every single nail on the head. They got everything right.
It's so good that even version exclusive Pokemon still spawn for the person from that version when you're doing like crossplay.
It is
you have your friend who has Scarlet run around a cave until a Dano spawns for them, and then you run up and fight it because they're like the spawns are per player. Like what determines what is spawning is determined by the person who spawns it, but anyone can fight that spawn. Another example is Lady stealing Jeremy's shiny.
That is amazing. I want to talk about that as well. Monster Hunter, Generations Ultimate, and I think even Rise to an extent, and World even. The little monsters in those games, I believe, I know in GU they are guaranteed, they are instanced. Things like the bugs, things like Bullfango, or things like that. I don't even know Bullfango. I think Bullfango. They are instanced per player. So if you kill one of those small monsters and you're carving it up, chances are the other person in the lobby is wondering what the fuck you're doing.
Yep.
But in this game, all of the Pokemon are server side. Every single one of them. So if a Pokemon is in one position, if a particular Pokemon is in one area for one person, it is in that exact same spot. It is the exact same Pokemon. It is even the exact same shiny for everyone else in the lobby. Which is fucking mental. Because I genuinely did not think it would run that well. And let's also talk about one other thing. Connection. It's so fucking smooth.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Don't get me wrong. In raids, it can get a bit fucky. Syncing issues can be a bit of a problem, and it can lead to all types of issues.
That occurs in normal raids, though.
Yeah, but when someone is running around the overworld, it's just smooth as hell.
Yeah.
I fully expected like a lot of lag, a lot of teleporting, a lot of rubber banding going on. It just works.
Yeah, they run at full frame rate and everything. Like,
I can follow someone around, and it just works. It is nuts in that regard that it just works.
Yeah, it is truly staggering how well the multiplayer functions in this game.
Yeah.
It's very clear that the majority of development was on making sure multiplayer worked properly and writing.
And sandwiches.
And sandwiches, yeah,
Weirdly enough.
For some reason. Making sandwiches is really, really funny, but you didn't need that much effort into the system.
You did not need to go that ham on it. I think effort could have been put into other places, but I appreciate the effort.
Maybe make effort into wild Pokemon not being in their slightly lower LOD version when I encounter them on the overworld, and then popping into their higher LOD version when the battle actually starts.
Yeah, could we have a bit more performance before we have sandwiches? But I'll take what I can get at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I guess we'll talk about the sandwiches as well.
Before we get
into
story
the gameplay and story. Yeah,
sandwiches are a really good idea. I like them.
They are incredibly interesting as a concept. I love the idea of this thing that can empower your ability to catch Pokemon or find shinies. I have one criticism. There didn't need to be 3 different fucking shops for it in each town.
Yeah.
Just make it the one, please. Just have it be. God, I hate going into each, especially when each shop is a bit slow. I'd rather it just be the one.
Yeah, it should just be one shop for everything instead of you have your vegetables and your condiments and your meats and.
But here we are again at the multiplayer.
Yeah. Making sandwiches with 4 people is really fucking funny.
Why does it work so well?
It's so funny.
I can see them picking up the condiments and slapping them on. I was like, what the fuck? I fully expected it to be a single player adventure, but here we are making a sandwich together.
It's so funny every time making sandwiches with
And
four
there's
people.
no fucking benefit to making it in a group.
No, there's not. You
I
just get
think you
more
can still only
ingredients.
have 3 boosts.
Yeah. You might be able to get higher levels of them because you can have more ingredients. Like when we had
Why not?
20 slices of ham on one sandwich.
To be fair, the levels are attached to
Actual
the Herba
ingredient.
Mystica actually.
Oh, Herba Mystica. Okay.
Herba Mystica is what boosts the level. So when we put on all that ham, it's still got what level 1 of the same ham ability. Which again, funny as fuck. Why though?
I honestly think it was just the comedy factor. I genuinely think that
It,
when they developed the real physics based sandwich building portion of the game, they realized they had struck gold and were just like, what if we let all four people do this at the same time?
it was so fucking silly. And don't get me wrong, it was incredibly funny. God, I wish it had less priority.
Yeah, no, it didn't
But
need to be in the game at all.
the
You could have
fact,
it.
you know,
We should
what
have
is
just
in
had
the game
a
though is still
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, we should have just had pre-made sandwiches that had boosts attached to them that we could buy. Like that
Yeah,
should have been
been
what
like
it
in
was,
Sword
but
and Shield.
or it should have just been menu based, like where you buy the
Yeah,
ingredients and you construct the sandwich and just eat it. Like there's no reason we needed to have the fucking real physics based mini game.
it's like yeah, you know, it's incredibly funny though. Like anyone out there who plays this game, play it with friends.
Yeah, and make a sandwich, just
It
do it.
raises the volume of enjoyment so much more. Like it adds credence to my theory that every game is better with multiplayer.
Hmm.
Because Jesus Christ.
God, this
So
fucking.
much what other gameplay stuff is that we can talk about before story?
I mean the raid dens. We should probably just talk about them.
Yeah, the raid dens. They hit the nail on the head for the most part. Jesus Christ, though, maybe we shouldn't have had the synced turns.
Yeah, because that even when you're playing solo, sometimes the weird desync happens, and I'm not
Hmm.
100% sure what can cause it because I was playing solo, I was doing a 5-star Glamora raid, and I was doing well. Like I had over half the time left, and its HP was like a third. Like okay, cool, I'm gonna be able to
Hmm.
win this. Then I go to cheer to raise everyone's attack, and the game just stops. I can't hit A.
Eh,
I can't hit B. Nobody is doing anything. No moves are going off. Nothing is happening, but the timer is still going down. And it just sat there until the timer hit the point where it said, oh, it's gathering up its energy. And then all of a sudden I could do things again. So, like, sometimes it just gets caught on a menu part and it doesn't know
So,
what to do. So it just stops you from doing anything until something else happens. And unfortunately, because I was in single player, nothing else could happen.
hmm. So, if I can throw out a theory. So, Jesus Christ, this is what I'm going to use as an example. Multi-threading
Okay.
is a concept in programming where you can have multiple threads at once running at one time. However, they all have to hold their own information. And when it comes to sharing that information, there has to be a reunification point for each thread to join back. I haven't worked with multi-thread in a while, so don't quote me on this. But
Okay.
that's kind of like
Just
a
one
lot of
question.
the fundamental theory.
Small question.
Yeah,
Is the Switch processor even capable of multi-threading?
I don't fucking know.
I doubt it is,
But
but continue.
thankfully, multi-threading is not what I think is the issue. Because
Okay.
I'll be honest, I don't think there is multi-threading going on for when it comes to this type of thing in multiplayer. Generally, you don't need multi-threading because the clients are in their own weird way, their own thread. Um, but I think the similar core principle issue is the same. You've got everyone taking their own turn in things. So when you finally take your turn, someone else could have taken 3 turns. Um, and that's how that works.
Hmm.
So when it comes to things like cheering or where the enemy Pokemon does a move that affects everyone, everyone has to get to that point where they can then reunify, and then that incident can occur. So then that cheer can occur, then that attack can occur, and I think that is part of what leads to the hanging issue. Is where characters are getting desynced. So, for example, when someone is terrestrializing, you'll notice that the entire fight basically freezes for a while
Yeah, for the fucking
because
10-second
no
animation.
one no one could do anything until that person is done. Because say, for example, you're still continue allowed to do stuff and you do a cheer, but that person is still halfway through terrestrializing. What does the game do in that scenario? Or say the enemy Pokemon wants to do something that lowers your stats, or takes a terror charge, or do a wide-ranging move. That person would still be in this sort of limbo of they haven't received the information yet. So the game sort of handles that issue by stopping everyone else until person three has caught up, and then continue on from there. And I think it's similar to when you go into your menu and all of a sudden you find the controls ripped from you. I think that is because the game's going right. Everyone is currently on their menus. We need to do the enemy Pokemon's move, or we need to do something else. So that is why the game will suddenly rip control away from you because the game has gone, well, you're not doing anything at this moment in time. We're going to take that turn. And I think that is largely what causes that desync issue. Whereas if the game was going right, everyone has to take a turn in sync like it was in Sword and Shield, or it has to wait for an order, that desync issue wouldn't occur, but then the timer mechanic would not work as well because all of a sudden one person could hold up the entire fight and you could just watch the timer go down and it could create an infuriating bit of gameplay.
Yeah.
So I can see the issue they were backed into because I think the timer was the right direction for raids. I think that was the best way they could have made raids more difficult without making them tedious and just clunky like they were in Sword and Shield with the shield, where it was your priority wasn't the damage, your priority was just hitting the Pokemon, so the
Yeah.
shield would just fade away within that 10 turn limit of a raid. And I think that is why the issue arises with desync. And again, I think they were just kind of like backed into a corner. This is kind of the best version of what it could be right now. I do think there are better ways to do it, but this is kind of what we got, and I can see why it happens.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of it's just like despite the online being so good, I doubt the online infrastructure they have access to is good enough to handle 5 turns being actually taken simultaneously, technically.
That as well, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised that there is some connection issues, which is why things can happen the way they can,
Yeah.
and turns can probably be eaten by the server, which is why
Yeah.
seemingly one person will just not get to have a turn
Or will do
because the game's gone
damage
into
and
that.
then the health actually won't go down, which has happened a
Yeah,
couple times.
yeah, because it's like I imagine when it comes to doing damage or something, or when that turn gets eaten, the game's gone. Right, everyone's in the menu. We're gonna quickly do this thing, but maybe something happened on your client's end, so the game thinks, oh well, you've taken your turn, so we'll wait for this, and that's why that can happen.
I'm actually really curious if having a wired connection for everyone in a raid would improve it.
Maybe it all depends on how much is connection wise and how
Yeah.
much is just
Weird programming quirk.
finickiness.
Yeah. That being said, the raids are really, really fun and entertaining, and I like them a lot. They're, of course, significantly better than Sword and Shields because A, there's not 12 per day and then you're just fucked. They constantly respawn. And the Terra typing stuff makes you actually really, really think about what you're bringing and your
Mm.
strategy for it.
Yeah, for example, earlier I got a Fido who was a ghost type 6 star, and I was just like, That's a fairy type ghost type. How the fuck am I going about this one?"
Yeah, because it's like, I mean,
Like,
steel is really your only option there,
mm.
right? Yeah,
It's
because
so
dark
good
is.
because you've effectively got this situation where you've got a Pokemon that is equivalent to having 3 types at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Like, sure, they've only got one type in terms of effectiveness, but their moves are completely opposite. And this game does a very, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the game does a very good job of pairing the Pokemon and the Terra type in such a way that it's a lot harder to pick your fights because it'd be easy enough for the game to go, well, this is a normal type terror type slacking.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fairly simple.
You bring a
But
steel
no,
type or a
normally
fighting
it'll be
type, and then
saying
you're just
like,
totally fine. Yeah.
this is a ghost type slacking. So you think, oh, I'll bring in fighting type. No, wait a minute. It's a ghost type. Fighting type would be useless to me. What am I doing here?
It's like, okay, I'll bring
And
dark type. Unfortunately, slacking can very easily learn fighting type moves. So it's like,
yeah,
fuck me. It's like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's fantastic coverage. And I think I still have the theory that there is a slot in Terra types for moves. So the Pokemon you are fighting might have six moves, because it
Oh
definitely
yeah,
feels
no,
like
they do.
sometimes
They do.
they
Yeah.
have those extra moves, which is a stroke of genius. Because it doesn't, it stops a Terra type being a decorational thing. It becomes a case of you have to plan for whatever that base Pokemon can learn, and also what the Terra type can throw at you, which is a fantastic way of making these raid dens so much more difficult.
Yeah.
Especially considering it definitely feels like they pumped up the health
Oh my
of
god, did they
whatever you're
ever?
fighting.
Yeah. Once you
Yeah.
hit 5-star, that's when it's just like, okay, you need to actually think. Because like 4-star, you can just plow through with a high level Pokemon without
Mm.
issue. But once you hit 5-star, the levels jump up to 75, and at that point, it's just like, oh boy, okay, we gotta think now. Like maybe with a level
Yeah.
100, you could probably plow through it too, but
It's they definitely hit the nail on the head when it comes to getting some level of difficulty in these raids,
mm-hmm.
especially at like the beginning point of where because when you've got to a team when you've got a setup of like level 100 competitive ready Pokemon ideal for these raids, then yeah, the raids are likely going to be a lot easier. But when you're in that initial phase of you've just got into endgame, you've just unlocked 5 and 6 stars, in that scenario, those raids have got perfect level of difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
The only flaw with them really is just that desync issue.
Yeah, and the fact that
That
once
is
you
it.
once you hit 5-star and above, they're kind of impossible to solo unless you're really overleveled because the AI is too stupid to
Yeah,
do anything.
the AI is my main problem. Like I see what they're going for. I see that they don't want 5 star and 6 star to be soloable. I can understand it, but at the same time, God fuck you if you don't have an internet connection or people know people.
Yeah, it's like at least make
Which
the
does
AI
actually
take
lead to
turns
one of my other
without.
issues
Hmm?
with raid ends. So when you go to multiplayer, and when you're in a single player lobby, but you go to do a raid den in the connections menu. The raid den menu is basically you join in and you get thrown, I believe it is 8 raid dens that people have put up and listed online.
Yeah,
Ignore them because chances are by the time the game has thrown you at them, 90% of them will have either closed or by the time you connect to them, they will have then closed. They are worthless to you. Ignore them completely. You want to press the random button, but that has its own issue. The random button will give you any raid it can that is currently open to the lobby. That can range from 1 star to 6 star.
yeah, you better.
Now,
And the problem there is like, well, you can change. You can still pick your Pokemon after you've joined in, but getting a 6-star
yeah,
raid is like, I hope you're prepared for a level 90 super boss.
yeah, exactly. What I wish the game did was it had 1 to 4 star random
Yeah,
and then 5 to 7 star random. Because you could argue that, well, a lot of people who list 1 to 4 star won't be able to get as many people. Which the counter argument to that is they are soloable.
very true.
They once you get to a certain point, they are soloable. 5 to 7 stars, unless you've got the most busted Pokemon you can, who is the most fitting for that raid, it is not soloable. Those AI are not enough. They are dumb as fuck.
Then they only take a turn when you take your turn. So
Yeah, exactly. I wish it was separated in that way so I could go, hey, I want to go do some higher level raids only. Let's go. Like the main benefit from 1 and 4 star raids is the fact that I can walk in there, my armor is level 90, flamethrower, boom, done, raid's over, I'm gone. It's all been like a couple of minutes.
yeah,
That is my main gripe with the raid system is just please stop making me do 1 to 4 stars. Please.
okay.
Yeah, that's my main gripe when it comes to raids.
So I guess the last thing before we get into the actual plot of the game itself is probably just talking about the decks, like the new Pokemon and the returning
Oh,
stuff, because
oh, the books.
I didn't even think about that. Oh my god, yeah, the Pokedex is so cool. I love the books. They're so cool.
That better return. Of all the things they've ever done, those books better fucking return.
Yes, I love
Because
it.
don't get me wrong, the fact they got 400 Pokemon, and then they were like, we're going to take custom screenshots for every single one of these little bastards.
Mm-hmm.
It was like so unneeded, but so. It's one of
Perfect.
those situations of no one asked for it, but God, everyone is happy they did it.
Yes. And I love the idea because like the reason it's like that is because it's an app developed by Jacques
Mm,
and he wanted to add some flair to it. And it's just like the Pokedex is amazing. It's such a good,
so perfect.
perfect presentation. Like easily the best
The,
presentation of a Pokedex they've ever had. Like
the rewards as well. Every 10 Pokemon, you get
yes.
a reward. That was a fantastic idea because normally for me, filling out Pokedex feels like tedium after a while.
Yeah.
Uh, because I'm just like, I've got to go catch this very hyper specific thing. I've got to level up all these guys. It's just not fun. Whereas this time, I'm like, what's after my next reward?
Yeah.
What's the
I
next thing I'm gonna get after this? And they even used it as a way as like, hey, you just completed this part of the Pokédex. Have a friend ball. Duplicate it.
yeah. Oh yeah, the fact that we can duplicate those balls now cuz yeah, I have I am at the end of the Pokedex. Literally after we finish up here, we're hopping on and you're giving me the other paradoxes so I can be 100% done.
Do you
I
want 5 Koraidon?
no, I'm okay. But yeah, so like I'm at the end, and it's really funny because the last page is one nugget, two nugget, three big nugget, and then the last one is a mystery thing that it doesn't tell you.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting. Because I'm curious on that. Because naturally you'd assume it'd be the shiny charm, but then
yeah.
you realize Jacques gives you stuff, and then it's like, what the fuck is going to be in that final slot?
Who knows? Could be something really cool, or it could be literally nothing. Who knows?
10 nuggets.
Let's go, more money. Um, but and then on top of that, and like just the Pokedex itself is really nice, but then also the new Pokemon themselves, like the new designs and everything.
Mm.
So I've been waffling on this a little bit. There are a couple problems I have with like the new set they've given us. It's
Fucking evolve.
yeah, there's too many one stages, way too many single stages this time around. I feel like they could have just thrown in even like a prevo for some of them, like Bombardier. Easily could have had a prevo.
Mm.
Flamigo easily could have had an evolution. It's too simple of a design to be a single stage. I really like the designs, like purely design wise. I think this is my favorite dex. It helps that it's larger than usual. It's like 90 something, I think,
Mm.
including the new regionals slash new Pokemon, because there's only like one or two that are actually regionals, and all the others are considered new Pokemon. But
It's a Toad Scroll, my Toad School, my beloved.
Toadstool is the most disgusting little freak they've ever put into these games. It's so good. What an amazing little bastard. But yeah, like
The fact they actually made Tentacruel viable is incredibly
yes.
funny to me.
I adore this dex. All three starters are some of the strongest starters we have had since probably Gen 4. Like I love Gen 7. I love Gen 7 a lot. I like the starters a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of Decidueye or Incineroar. I think they
Really?
could. Yeah, Incineroar's fine. He's funny. I like him being a giant wrestler. Decidueye, I feel like is like, why is it Grass Ghost? I feel like it would have been better if it stuck with a yeah. Like I like just
I think
it's.
Grass Dark would have worked better for Decidueye, honestly, because of the theme of what it is.
I just wish it say Grass
But like
Flying.
this sort of like Lone Ranger.
Yeah. Because yeah, I just like it's whatever. Rowlet's perfect, but like Decidueye is just kind of whatever. But this gen, I adore all three. Masquerada's amazing. It's one of my favorite starters of all time for pretty obvious reasons. It's literally my brand of fucking jester trickery stuff. Quaquaval is hilarious because it's so fucking gay. My god. Holy shit. And Skeledirge is just a really cool design, and I like its concept of the fire inside of it growing so strong it gained a soul and hatched into a bird.
So it's funny you say all that about starters because this is the first game where I dropped my starter.
Really?
Yes, because it's not that I don't like their designs. Not I'm not a big fan of them. I think they are good designs. It's just I felt like there were so many other designs that overshadowed them to some extent.
I
Which
can't even disagree with you.
which brings me to my big point. There were a lot of designs in this game which are just the greatest things they've ever made. Mousehold, my fucking beloved. Mousehold doesn't make it. Mousehold raises the question of what the fuck is evolution? What is the biology in this world? Are they like a hive mind? Like, what is going on in that? But it's also fucking incredible.
Hmm.
It's just so good that the evolution for Mousehold is just another mouse.
Or two. Usually two.
Or two. I got one.
Really? You got the 1 in 25?
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's so funny to me that that is what they did. They were just like, just another mouse.
Just another mouse.
Just found another mouse on that fucker.
And
Like,
the funniest part
that
being
is
that
artwork.
it's a random evolution and isn't supposed to give you an evolution screen. It's just supposed to evolve, and you don't notice until you send it out in battle or see it in your menu.
Yeah. It's God, it's good. They had a lot of fun with the new Pokemon in this generation when it came to things like abilities, when it came to things like unique moves. I still wish they handled unique evolution methods way better than they do.
Yeah,
But when it
some of
came
them
to
they
stuff
don't
like
even.
designs,
Yeah.
oof,
Some of the new evolution methods they've introduced are cool, and I'm perfectly okay with them being evolution methods. But you need to tell people that they are, because some of them we wouldn't know without data mining. Like the likelihood of you walking 1,000 steps with a Pokemon without it going back into the ball and then gaining a level before bringing it back into the ball is really low, and it's for 3 different Pokemon. 2 of which I
that's it.
actually guessed that would be the method to evolution, but I never would have known that you had to do it all in one shot.
That's it. Like, so when it came to trade evolutions, I was mixed on those because obviously it required another person, but those were a lot easier to stumble across.
Yeah.
Like, I still remember stumbling across Machamp back in the day.
Mm.
Well, I traded with a friend and all of a sudden it evolved into Machamp and I was just like, what the fuck just happened? And then we started experimenting with other Pokemon because it was consistent. If there was a Pokemon that you couldn't get to evolve through level up, you would just try trading evolutions.
Mm.
But my problem with a lot of the new evolution methods is they're getting so hyper specific that you can't stumble across them anymore.
Yeah.
You have to actively data mine or hunt them down. And the game does nothing to tell you about it. There's no hints. Like I am someone who believes that if your game relies on a wiki to teach your players things, your game is bad. Because that is not how that should work.
Mm-hmm.
People got angry at Minecraft when they had the recipe book. To me, that was a good thing because it meant people didn't have to go and
Yeah.
search on a wiki because that is having to do that is one of the greatest ways to get people to stop paying interest in your game. And it is the same when it comes to these evolution methods. I think having to look them up is what kills a lot of the fun of Pokedex completion for a lot of people because no one wants to fucking do that. No one wants to go out there and start looking, researching how to evolve a Pokemon. Chances are they're just evolving strictly to finish that Pokedex.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it came to in Sword and Shield, Farfetch'd into Surfetch'd.
But yeah, that and
Um,
Runrigus. Like, yeah.
Oh god, like they're getting they're getting too specific with how they're doing this, and if they want to do that, they need to start introducing, say, a hint into the Pokedex to say like, oh, this Pokemon seems to evolve under these circumstances, or when this happens. Something that allows players to figure it out and make this sort of experimentation going on rather than just, oh, you can't get this Pokemon evolved. Look it up.
Yep.
Just look it up and Google it because you ain't going to find this out on your own.
I will say this with full confidence, and by that I mean allegedly. I don't mean this is all parody. I don't mean any of this. To the Game Freak employee who designed the evolution method for Bisharp into King Gambit, I will find you.
Yeah, that one was probably one of the worst ones I've ever seen.
It's the worst one they've ever done because it is literally impossible to stumble upon that. In what world are you going to look for specifically a Bisharp surrounded by Pawniard so it's carrying a held item that's exclusive to that rare spawn, and then do that 3 more times and have your Bisharp holding that held item KO those 3 other Bisharp that are holding that held item, and then level up.
Yeah, you aren't stumbling across that. If it weren't for data miners, we still wouldn't know how to do that.
It's impossible. Nobody would know how to do that. Nobody would understand. The Dex doesn't tell you anything. It's even the item description just says this is the Bisharp that stands above all Bisharp. Like, yeah. Or is like a leader of the Pawniard. It's like, if the Dex said something like, legend has it that by defeating several other Bisharp holding this item, they achieve new strength or something. Sure, yeah, okay. That I could understand. Because that's like a good hint. It's like, oh, okay, so if I knock out a couple Bisharp that are also holding this, it might lead to an evolution or something. But no, it's literally nothing. The item description doesn't tell you anything. The Dex entry doesn't tell you anything. You just have to find 4 rare spawns in a row, which took well over an hour of both of us hunting in one of the worst running areas in the game.
It's one of those things where, because the thing is, the new Pokédex has a new feature, whereas when you go to a Pokemon you haven't seen before, and when you enter that, it will show you a silhouette of that Pokemon. And sometimes they can even show you what to catch it. But that could have easily had a hint in it.
Yes.
Of saying, oh, this Pokemon has been known to appear after such and such circumstances. Or something like that. Because I understand the idea of the Pokédex is you're discovering new information. Fuck that, though. This is not Legends Arceus.
Exactly.
We aren't just discovering these Pokemon for the first time. The Pokédex itself already doesn't make sense. Why don't these professors talk to each other? But it's fucking ridiculous. Like, no, the fucking champion of the region has a goddamn King Gambit. It has been done before. We know it can be done. Why was it not logged? Why did she not do that and go, fuck me, I need to share this information. I need to pass this down to my kids. No one's going to figure this one out.
Like, the only excuse I can think of is that filling out the Pokédex is considered part of your school activities as, like, finding your treasure.
Yeah. But it's just the way that Jacques reacts to it as well. It's like, oh my god, he acts like this is new information. I think, what the fuck? Like, part of me wants the next game, the data miners, to tell no one how to evolve any of these Pokemon.
Yeah.
For the next 2 games, data miners, keep your mouths shut. Alright, don't mention a fucking thing, because then Game Freak will likely realize, oh, unless someone literally data mines our code, nobody knows how to do this.
And the best part is,
we should do something about that.
Sometimes data mining doesn't even help. People didn't know how to evolve Finizen until the games came out, because it requires you to be in an online room in order for it to evolve. Which, hey, Game Freak, shitty thing to do. Don't do that.
Yeah, the fact that you have to be in an online room when... that's just... Oh, God.
It's so funny. That's the only requirement, but it's the one data miners and leakers couldn't figure out because they couldn't connect online. So they had no idea how to evolve the fucking thing. But, like, they knew the evolution, so they were trying a bunch of really funny things. Because, you know, Finizen evolved into Palafin, which is, like, a superhero type of thing. So they were trying all these ridiculous, like, save other Pokemon using it by switching out into it and defeating something they were having trouble with and all this other bullshit. And it turned out he just had to be online. funniest shit in the world. Also, I love Palafin. I think it's an amazing Pokemon and an amazing concept. It seems like it's difficult to like get going at first, but the payoff is so unreal. I think it is actually worth having to use technically 2 entire turns to get that thing out. It has a base stat total of 650. It's insane. It has the same attack stat as Slacking, with none of the downside. It's absurd. That thing is crazy fucking strong. And it's water type too, so it's like it's not even a bad type. Pure water. Like, yeah, it doesn't have a subtyping for stab, but it has a 160 base attack stat. Like, you don't need stab when your attack is that high.
Yeah. For me, it was just... It talks to my problem with this gen a bit, which is that it feels like a lot of the new designs are designed with competitive doubles in mind.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind that, but it kind of detracts from their use in the regular game when that is very clearly their focus. Like, say Dondozo. That thing's entire ability requires having its partner Pokemon there. In a game where I think I have seen a grand total of 1 person use a double battle.
Yeah, the ghost type gym leader might be the only double battle in the entire game. As far as I know.
Would basically mean if it wasn't for her, Dondozo would effectively be, well, just useless.
Yeah,
in
without
the entire
ability.
game, because its ability, no one would ever witness it happen unless they went into multiplayer. Which is kind of where my thought process the other day of, which is I wish there was a like, because Pokemon can have 2 abilities. You know, they can have the one they have and then the one they can other have.
I believe at the very least, Dondozo and Tatsugiri both do have hidden abilities that work as a single ability. They have that at the very least. But having to grind for ability patches is...
Yeah. That's kind of like what I want that system to be from now on. If they want to have a Pokemon that's competitively viable, sure, have the competitive ability, but I think the competitive one should be the one that people have to use the ability patch for, and the one that is more useful in just the base game throughout your playtime should be the other ability one, because most Pokemon have an objectively good, objectively better ability.
Yeah.
That everyone is going to want to use anyway, so that other slot is basically wasted 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that may as well be used as the competitive skill. I think that's how that should work from this point on, rather than, oh, here's a Pokemon with a competitive ability. Does it have another one? It might do. By a flash fire, maybe.
But yeah, like, I actually just went and looked it up because I was like, my Tinkaton, which, by the way, my favorite Pokemon for the new generation is Tinkaton. What an unbelievably incredible design. Just, oh my god, it's so good. I love that every generation we're getting a fairy type that is just an absolute menace to fucking society. Like, Tinkaton's the reason they don't use Corviknights as the air taxis, because Tinkaton hunt Corviknight for their metal, and that's what they make their hammer out of. Which is also the reason the Tinkaton's shiny, only the hammer changes color to match the color of the Corviknight shiny.
Oh my god.
It's so good. I love it. It's such a good fucking Pokemon. But it has Mold Breaker, which is a fucking worthless ability that I hate, and Own Tempo, ability that they buffed and is amazing. Because they buffed a lot of abilities this gen, where Own Tempo used to be, you just can't get confused. Now, you can't get confused, and Intimidate doesn't work on you, which is amazing for any Pokemon, really, unless they're a special attacker and it doesn't matter. But still, they buffed Own Tempo to be an even better ability. They nerfed some other abilities like Protean, it only works once per battle, but I think they might have done that in an earlier gen.
Maybe.
But yeah, like, just, I had so much trouble deciding on a team. I had so much trouble because I was in love with, like, fucking 12 of the designs for final, like, evolutions. Like, I had Ceruledge on my team, but I was just like, because Ceruledge is really cool, but I was like, I have another ghost type, and because, like, I evolved my Gimmighoul into Goldengo relatively early, And when I saw Goldango, I was like, oh, this thing needs to be on my team. This fucking golden Gumby looking motherfucker with his fucking snowboard made out of coins and the Gimme Ghoul chest on his belt. Like, what an incredible fucking design. And it just also turns out that it's really, really good and has one of the most broken abilities in the entire game.
Yeah.
And then...
Go on.
And just like, I wanted to use Bramblegast, because Bramblegast is really cool. I like the idea of a Tumbleweed Pokemon, but it's Grass Ghost. I already have those two types covered, so I didn't. I wanted to use Low-Kicks, because it's my favorite bug type ever. It's super cool, but it's Bug Dark. Already had Dark type covered. Bug didn't really cover anything else on my team, so I was like, well, fuck it, I'm not going to do that. It just like, there were so many good designs. I wanted to use Annihilate. I already had Ghost covered. I didn't want to use another Ghost type, like...
That's why I started building the box.
Yeah,
Pokemon.
like, and
I
then
can just swap them out. I'm like, I feel like using this Pokemon now.
It's just like, because I wasn't doing enough of the raids in order to like keep more than 6 Pokemon at a relatively good level. Because at a point I was just like, all right, I want to start making progress because I was taking too long.
It's just, God, like I see some people say, there are a lot of designs that don't fit with them, and I definitely feel like that's probably because it feels like this gen they kind of changed how they design Pokemon and whatnot. Because this gen definitely feels more unique from previous ones.
Yes,
So I can definitely see where people's dislike of the new designs comes from. But from a personal standpoint, I think Mousehold deserves a place in a museum.
And I feel the same way about Tinkaton.
Like it's for me, there's definitely a lot of strong contenders.
Yeah.
For like, if I didn't draw Gardevoir, I would probably have a new favorite Pokemon.
And like, the pseudo this generation is literally just Godzilla. It's just Godzilla,
including the fucking GIF.
Yeah, like. There's a gif of Godzilla from one of the movies where it uses its breath to launch itself upside down and hit people with its back spikes. That is literally the pseudo-legendary signature move. It just does that. It's amazing. I cannot overstate how fucking incredible it is.
It's... Oh my god.
There are oh god, every new Pokemon is just... Also, yeah, that's another thing. 90% of the new Pokemon have a signature ability or signature move. Like, a ton of them do. And a lot of them are just Flash Fire with some extra bonuses. Like, Fido.
Fucking torture.
Fido has Flash Fire with extra bonuses. The pseudo-legendary Baxcalibur has Flash Fire with some extra bonuses. The new... I guess the new regional bird, it's only a 2-stage and it's really late in the dex, but it's the only traditional bird Pokemon that actually evolves. So I guess it's the regional bird. Wattrel and Kilowattrel have a unique ability where wind moves empower them specifically because they're based on Kestrels. There's just a ton of super interesting and unique stuff, and I love it so fucking much. It's so good. Arbalava, the new just sexy lady quote unquote grass type that apparently we're getting a lot of now. It has a unique ability where if it gets hit, it procs grassy terrain. Just like, there's a ton of super cool and interesting stuff they're doing. Glimora, if it gets hit by a physical move, drops poison spikes, and they stack to get toxic as well. Like, tons of super interesting abilities and like methods of like building teams now. And I'm so happy they're doing it because now every single Pokemon feels like they have something to offer. Because there's been tons of, like, I'm looking at, like, Gen 7 specifically had one of the most egregious examples of this where why would you use Lurantis when you can just use Serena, who is just a better Lurantis? Physical grass type, higher stats, better move pool. Why would you use Lurantis? Ever. Now Lurantis might get a cool ability where like it gets the sword ability where slashing type moves get bonuses because it's got the little claws. Maybe Solar Blade would actually be usable.
Hey, definitely. So many Pokemon they hit it out of the fucking park.
Yep. The fucking dung beetle that turns into a scarab with a floating embryo above it. Wow, beautiful.
That dung beetle was fucking amazing.
Psychic ostrich.
I
Awesome.
first saw that dung beetle in a raid, so I didn't see it out in the world. But when I finally saw that thing out in the world, I was like, "Hey, it's just an actual whole ass dung beetle."
Yeah, it's great. I
Which brings me to my other point.
yeah.
This generation seems to be the generation where they went, "Why are we making cries? Go get your fucking dog. We'll bring it into the studio."
Oh my god, I love. They introduced 2 new dog Pokemon this generation, and both of their cries are just actual dogs barking.
Yeah, it's so fucking funny to me that it feels like they've kind of started to go, just why are we making cries? Why? Just just go record an actual animal. Like I still think it was it's on my team. I can never remember the damn bird's name.
What,
Uh, the big seagull.
Kilowattrel.
Yeah, Kilowattrel. That thing still sounds like that thing from Spore to me. Like the first time I heard that thing's cry, I was like, "Isn't that the mouse I usually use in Spore?"
They got actual Foley now.
It's so funny that they just went, "We know what to do."
It's like we're no longer refined to 16-bit sound fonts. We can
Yeah.
do things.
Like, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the days of Charizard and Rhydon having the Rhyhorn even having the exact same cry, for some reason. But
One of them was pitch shifted, right?
I
Surely.
honestly don't think it was at
Christ.
first. I think in the initial games, I think they were just the exact same. I enjoyed the old Kyogre cry. Still don't like the new Oras one. I like the Groudon cry. I like Rayquaza. I like. Thank God the Pikachu cries back. Thank God it stopped saying its
Oh
fucking
my,
name.
yeah.
I'm so glad
hated
they
that.
walked back that decision.
Yeah, I hated that. That was really bad.
Same with Eevee. Eevee just sounds like Eevee now.
No, Eevee should have. Eevee was Aoyuki, so they should have kept that one.
It's this consistency thing, and also it's just when I'd hear it say the name, I was just like, "What?
Why are you different?
Why are you doing this?"
Okay, but we're getting a little off track.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on the cries.
Yeah, but yeah, the Mabalstiff is another Pokemon that I was absolutely in love with, but it was pure dark, so I couldn't use it on my team because
scares me.
I love Mabalstiff so much.
I love the initial story thing. Is like you see it this like sad little dog, and then when like every time it gets sent out afterwards, it looks like it's about to beat you up in a dark alley. It does that fucking smile.
Speaking
The
of
fucking
the
first
story,
one though looks like it's having a stroke.
it's
I just
doing
wanna
the
get that out there.
it's doing the delinquent Yankee face that they like to
Yes.
portray in a lot of Japanese media, where it's like it's the chin out and like the head tilt.
Yeah, it's the delinquent face. It just looks like it's having a stroke.
Yeah, so speaking of the story, we could finally start approaching that now that we're a little over an hour into this. So we're going to talk about the stories in the order of least to most emotionally engaging.
Fighter's autism.
Who? What?
No, Pokemon's first autistic character is your fucking rival.
Oh, yeah, Nimona. Jesus Christ. But yeah, so we're first we're gonna be talking about Champion Road because it's just the gym story, and while I adore Nimona, she is my favorite rival because she's amazing and I love everything they do with her. The story is just that it's just
It's just the gyms.
yeah, it's just the gyms.
I think okay. I just want to get this out there first of all because we always talk about our gripes first and then go on to the other stuff. My gripe is that I wish they touched on her like she's not looking for a rival, she's looking for someone who just enjoys battling on the exact same level as her.
Well, she's
I
looking for
wish
someone
that
who
had
can
been.
be her equal, because
She
fucking
wants an equal, but that's sort of what is always said through Gita. She's always the one who's like, oh, she's hunting for an equal. But then when you get to her, when you get to Nemona's room, she's just like, I don't understand why people don't like battling like I do.
hmm.
And it's like, I wish that had been touched on so much more throughout. Like maybe there was more situations where like she was trying to battle and then someone wasn't having it or something like that, and she was had more moments where she's like, why is no one enjoying this? And like it becomes more that's how your character's connection is to her, is you're finally that person who is seemingly enjoying battles to the same degree as she is.
Because she's
Like I
absolutely
would,
battle crazy. She has a bloodlust that cannot be sated.
yeah, like I would have loved that to be how they handled the story for that. And that had been that could have been the Champions Road plotline, because they do touch on that a little bit with Gita, where there are the Gita cutscenes and Gita goes, oh, she's like looking for someone who can be her equal and can finally stand on the same pillar as her. But I would have liked more of Nemona's perspective
Yeah,
through the story rather than just being told what she's feeling.
I feel like a lot of that comes from the fact that Nimona doesn't even really know
Mm.
what the main issue is, because she's like 16. And
That's what I mean.
she's
It would have been
also
fun to see her
clearly
sort of like,
autistic, as she admits
yeah, it would have
herself,
been fun to
basically.
see her. It would have been fun to see her like start to have that realization, or like have that moment of why am I the only one who's really enjoying this that much?
Mm,
Or something like that would have been really fun to have. But I
yeah.
will admit, for once having a rival who is very clearly could have fucked you up at any time they wanted to,
Mm,
wonderful step in the right
yeah.
direction.
Just
So glad they did that.
her introduction being the director being like, well, let's not use your normal team against the newbie trainer, please. Don't eviscerate
Yeah.
them frame one. And her being like, oh, yeah, I should probably hold back.
Yeah.
And then just like as the story goes on, she's like, all right, we're getting it. You're approaching my level. I can almost go all out against you. And I think a lot of the reason why we didn't get more of Nemona's side of things is because they also had to give us the scenes with individual gym leaders so that they got any characterization at all this time around, instead of literally none like they usually get.
Yeah.
Because the gym leaders this time around get more characterization than they usually do. I think the only time we've approached this was probably the trial captains from Gen 7. But that's because they were an entirely different thing. And even some of them didn't get nearly as much as this does. Like Larry.
Extent in Gen 8 with
Well, yeah,
the water
Raihan.
grass type gym
Yeah.
leaders.
Raihan
And
gets a
Raihan
lot,
as well.
Nessa gets a lot, yeah. But like
It seemed
Larry's,
mainly to be those three though.
yeah. Larry specifically
Larry.
gets a lot in this game. A lot.
Larry is so fucking funny to
we
me.
can get to him once we approach that part, but yeah, we should probably just go in
Yeah.
chronological order. But yeah, so like, you know, the Champions Road starts, I mean, all the roads start once you actually hit the school and you like meet all, because you meet Nimona first because she's your rival. She's the only friendly rival that's ever been done, I think, correctly, because she intentionally chooses the weaker starter so she can go easy on you, because she would rinse you if she didn't.
Yeah, exactly. I would say when it came to, I had a thought the other day on starters and why they started doing the whole like weak, they picked the weaker ones, and I kind of had a realization. It's only the recent games where your starter automatically has a typed move.
Yes, yeah.
Back in the old days, it would always just be like your starter has scratch.
Yep. It was just a roll the dice whether or not you won.
Yeah. So I can definitely see why they picked the weaker one now. I do think they could do it better so that they could have the stronger one, but I'll take what we can get.
I think the main reason why they opted to start doing that was because losing your first battle feels bad, and kids don't want that. Like, that's just what it is. Like, nobody
Yeah.
wants to lose the first fight of the game, even if it doesn't have any actual effect on anything. It sucks. It's a bad feeling. So, like, yeah, they're gonna let you win the first fight because, of course, they will.
So I would have loved if they had just gone in like one of those games where they go, oh yeah, I went back to the professor and got the other Pokemon because I realized what the fuck was I doing?
It's just like, yeah, I went easy on you that time. There will be no mercy in the future.
I was trying out that Pokemon, and I wasn't feeling it.
But yeah, so then you obviously you go to the school on because it's your first day of school or whatever, and you can take a billion hours to get there, and no one seems to care. Uh, and when you get there, you see Penny being assaulted by, or no, you meet Arvin first. I forgot about that. Holy shit! Right, you fall off
Yeah,
a
you meet
cliff.
Arvin. Yeah, you fall off a cliff, and that's how you get That's how you meet
Yeah,
Koraidon.
you see your legendary collapsed on the beach, and then you fall off a cliff, and you save yourself with your Rotom phone because it's a Rotom, so you could just jump off cliffs and not have to worry about it. And you feed it your sandwich, and you unfortunately give this lizard a lifelong addiction to sandwiches that will ruin it for life. But then you go through a cave. It leads you through. You get attacked by a level 40 Houndoom, and when you try to use a move, your Pokemon's like, nope, fuck that, and goes back into its ball immediately.
Yeah.
And then the legendary steps in and prevents it from attacking you, and it like scoops you up like a football and takes you out of the cave.
I will mention having Koraidon and Miraidon throughout the entire game with you was a stroke of brilliance on their
Yes,
part
incredible
because
decision.
I love having that sort of partner going on
Hmm.
because normally the partner is obviously a rival, but the problem is they can't really stick with you all the time.
Yeah.
So having this Pokemon with you was a really wonderful thing because it felt like you had an actual companion because they've been trying to make your starter or whatever you use primarily feel like your companion by when an NPC interacts with you, they usually say, "Hey, it's you," and then your Pokemon's name.
Yeah.
So they've been trying to have that, but the problem is, you can only have that characterization so much
Hmm.
when you don't know what is in that first slot. So
Yeah, they would
having
have to
that
render
set
three.
Pokemon that is on everyone's team
Yeah.
throughout the entire game, you know when it's there, so you as a developer can then call on that Pokemon, was the best thing they could have done.
Hmm. I'm imagining a world in which they did actually make cutscenes where your Pokemon showed up, but those would have to be an engine, and I don't think they can do that. I don't think an engine cutscenes are possible with what the tech they have.
I mean, they're
Because
in
they're
engine right
well,
now.
I mean, they're pre-rendered in the sense that it loads your model, but
Hmm.
the problem with a pre-rendered cutscene that used your or an in-engine cutscene that used your starter is they would have to basically make 9 versions of the cutscene.
Yeah, because there are a lot of different skeletons in this game, and
Yeah.
you'd have to get the animations correct.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they couldn't do that. So I understand why they haven't
Yeah.
done that. But Fame just pointed out Nebby, except he's a funny doggy. Yeah, that's literally what it is. It's basically Nebby too. Because like when you mentioned having a companion, the first thing that popped to mind is Lily filled that role in Gen 7. She just couldn't constantly be with you because she wasn't an actual like combatant. She hated fighting. That was like her whole thing. And she doesn't like seeing Pokemon fight, so she doesn't battle.
Mm.
We're not going to talk about Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, where they just undo that character, but yeah, she doesn't like battling, so she's only with you like during story sequences where you're not actually going to be fighting, but they have that kind of companion following you around. Which it looks like they actually might try to start doing something like that, given the ending sequence of this game, which is one of the most impressive things they've ever done. But we'll get to that in like an hour. But yeah, so you fall off a cliff. Miraidon Koraidon saves you. You go back up, exit the cave, and then you meet Arvin, who it turns out was the actual owner, quote unquote, of the legendary. And he's like, fucking, well, do you want to take this stupid fucking dog off me? Fight me for it. So you fight him for it, and you win, and he gives you the dog. Not his dog, though. He gives you the lizard dog, because he has his own dog.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you get the lizard dog, which is your legendary. And it apparently is really, really weak. It can't do much. Like, it just kind of lazily sits in its Pokeball because of some kind of, as we know, is some kind of PTSD involving an accident a couple of years ago. And Arvin seems to really fucking hate this lizard dog for seemingly no reason, but there is a reason. And then you go to school. And on your way
You
to
just go to school.
yeah, you go to your school and you see Penny being accosted by a bunch of Penny being the third path character. You see her being accosted by a bunch of Team Star members trying to pressure her into joining Team Star, who are a bunch of delinquents who don't attend class and apparently steal Pokemon and cause trouble or something. And so you step in to fight them. You rinse them, of course, and they get all weird and leave. Penny thanks you and runs off, and Nemona's really, really upset that you're battling someone who isn't her. which is
Yeah.
the funniest bit of dialogue I think in the entire game. It's her just being like, "Why are you picking fights with random scrubs? You already have me."
Oh, that is
Absolutely
good, yeah.
brilliant character writing. And then you go into school, you meet Director Clavel and everything. You take a lesson first, right? Before you have to go and meet Turo?
I think so. I think you take a lesson with Jacques first.
Yeah. And then after that, the director calls you into his office, which the school is like an instanced thing where it has a map-based travel, and you can have social link events with all your teachers and other characters, which is, again, one of the best
Oh,
things about
man.
this game.
So, like, okay, we Persona now. Where'd that
It's
come from?
it gives every single teacher more depth and character, and I love it. And you get little items at the end. They all have their own unique storyline that involves like stuff they're doing, or well, Jacques I think is the only one that doesn't really have one because he just gives you stuff for filling
Yeah,
out the
because he's the
Pokedex.
Pokedex guy.
You get his side plot in the classes when you take his midterm, and he asks a question that's just like, "What do you think about the Pokedex app? Is it okay? Am I doing good?" And then he talks about how the director yelled at him for putting that question on the test. He's so pathetic. I love him. But yeah, you meet Director Clavel, and it turns out the scientist or the professor for this generation, either Sada or Turo, depending on your version, wants to enlist your help in re-energizing your lizard dog, your legendary. And God, what is his act? He just wants you to help Miraidon Koraidon, right? That's literally all he says.
I think that is about what is said by
Yeah,
him, yeah.
and that we're gonna talk about when we get to the Path of Legends, because that's his plot line, him and Arvin, or her and Arvin, depending. So that's when you ever talk to him, and there's some really interesting stuff they do with the dialogue in that's really clever, and I will talk about later. But yeah, so at that point you leave the school, like you go outside, and all three characters you get contacted by a mysterious character called Cassiopeia who's hacked your phone, and they want you to take out
15
Team
hours
Star.
into the game, you start getting into the branching path.
I mean, yeah, if you God, it was like I think we actually took about almost 7 hours before we actually got to the
Mm-hmm.
school. But yeah, so at this point you can actually start doing your gym challenges or the Path of Legends or the Team Star stuff. There is an intended order because the levels scale, or the levels don't scale. So everything is at a set level. There's an intended order. You don't have to follow the order. You can do it however you want. The only main issue is that doing the gyms lets you catch higher level Pokemon. And they'll listen to you. Because, like, as long as you're raising them from under the cap, they won't stop listening to you. But if you catch them when they're above the cap, they won't listen to you, which is, So you have to do the gyms if you want to not spend a bunch of time grinding to have a higher level team. And then, yeah, so, like, Nimona says, "Hey, take the west exit. It'll lead to the first gym town." Arvin's like, "No. They're gonna take the east exit and help me with the first myth." And Cassiopeia is just like, "I don't fucking care. Do whatever you want." And so you take one or the other. It doesn't matter. It all leads to the same spot. And so you go on your merry way. And for the gym, the first gym intended is supposed to be the bug type gym, who has the lovely gym leader Katie, who's a baker. And I adore her design a lot. MILF coated, which of course means that she's right up my alley. But yeah, like past that, there's not really much plot going on in the Path of Champions. The most plot is every other gym that you do. There's a small cutscene where you talk to either members of the Elite Four or Gita, who's the chairwoman of the. Oh my god, we forgot to mention that championship works differently in this.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, there's no set champion. Trainers just reach a champion rank by completing the gym challenge and then also beating the Elite Four. And the final challenge at the end, which is just Gita, of course, which everyone called immediately. But she's not the actual champion because there's another fight immediately afterward.
Yep. Surprise.
But
Two
yeah,
champions
so
this time.
yeah, Nimona is a champion rank trainer, and she's the youngest champion rank trainer to ever, or in the entire region, which I guess technically we should be afterward because the player character is clearly younger than her, but they don't say that because they want to keep it nebulous. Also, or wait, maybe Nimona got to champion rank even younger than we are at the present.
True, we don't really know how long she's been
Yeah.
champion rank.
Yeah, we know Nemona's a champion rank trainer and that she's very, very good. Because Gita constantly talks her up and is like, she's really just looking for someone who can fight on her level, and you appear to be that person. So keep at it, chum. And then,
good luck, motherfucker.
Yeah. After 2 gyms, you meet Hassel, who's one of the Elite Four members, and also the art teacher at the school, so you can have little social links with him. And then after 4 gyms, you meet Rika, who is the character they didn't talk about at all, and has very clearly taken the internet by storm. People fucking love Rika, and for good reason. She's really cool. She's so cool. There's something about her design is just perfect. It's so good. Because, like, her design says 3 things to me personally. And I don't know if you agree with this, but I know I told Lucial and he seemed to agree with me. There are 3 things that Rika clearly is based on her design. She's trans, she's a lesbian, and she rides a motorcycle. Those are 3 things you can tell about her just looking at her design. Those are all factual statements.
This shit definitely has like a big chunk of hot women and a big chunk of people that are just like, what are you?
Yeah, there's a lot of GNC as fuck characters in this gen. It's ridiculous. Fucking 2
kind of wild, honestly.
Yeah. 2 of the Team Star bosses are very pretty boys. But yeah, so you meet Rika.
Giant woman.
Oh my god. Apparently, in Japanese, she calls the player kiddo, has the Kansai dialect, and refers to herself in 3rd person. Yeah, she's the coolest motherfucker on the planet. Amazing. God, I love Rika. And then after the 6th gym, you meet Poppy, right? It's Poppy?
Yes, the Elite Four member that no one would ever think is an Elite Four member because she's a fucking, like, 2-year-old.
Yeah, she's like a 4-year-old child.
Which raises the question of, what the fuck happened?
She either has some kind of disease, because she's not a champion rank trainer, because if she was, she would be the youngest champion rank trainer, obviously.
In history, in the world,
Yeah.
even.
So yeah, she's just one of the Elite Four members, and then the 4th Elite Four member is a secret that we'll reveal later.
She's definitely the youngest Elite Four member ever in the series. That is
absolutely
an unarguable fact.
Yeah, she is a literal child.
And
it's very funny.
Why is she not, like, there's so many questions. There's so many questions about what the fuck happened there.
It's so funny. I love it. Yeah, so other than that, you know, every time you do a gym, you learn a little bit about the gym leader, like, and every gym has a unique challenge associated with it that are all mostly really, really fun little things, like side activities. Like, for the first one, you have to push a giant olive through a maze from one side to the other, and it makes the funniest fucking sound when you hit it. The second one is the one they showed off, where you have to find all the Sunflora and bring them back. The third one is you have to be on Iono's stream with her, and you have to play a game of Where's Waldo with the director of the academy. Well, it's Mr. Walksabout. It's not the director of the academy. They're separate characters.
Walksabout.
Yeah, Mr. Walksabout.
That is the funniest. Like, I want to quickly say, the director in this game, one of my favorite characters in any Pokemon game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to be another situation where, like, oh yeah, he's obviously the villain. No, he's just a really good guy.
Yeah, the actual villain, quote unquote, is really good, genuinely well set up, and is telegraphed at the exact moment you're supposed to realize what it is.
Yeah, like, they did a really good job this time at hiding who the villain was.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone thought it was going to be another classic case of, like, oh, well, it's going to be the director.
Yeah.
It's going to be clever. It's going to be, like, someone like that.
It's gonna be Gita, whatever the fuck it is.
No one ever expected the Pokemon professor.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, when we get to Path of Legends specifically, I'll talk about that because, well, I'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, so, and then the 4th gym challenge, 4th gym is the water gym, is you just do an auction. It's nothing really.
That was my last one.
The intended fourth gym is the water gym, and you basically just participate in an auction. It's really easy and simple. It's just a goofy little thing. The intended fifth gym is the normal type gym. Fucking Larry, the exceptional
like
everyman.
He is just
Larry.
a dude.
He's just a guy. He's so just a guy that you talk to him during the gym challenge, and I literally didn't even notice it was him until he stood up when he revealed himself. I was like, oh, motherfucker. It's so good.
Like, Larry, by all accounts, should be the most boring character in the entire game. He should be the most forgettable, the most plain, yet they managed to do him in a really fantastic way. They managed to write him just correctly. They got the perfect level of, like, normalness, but in an entertaining way of having, like, him just sitting there in the place where you would not expect him, and then the reveal that he is the gym leader, and then yeah.
Talking about his like, well, I'm on the clock. I guess I gotta do this or the boss will get mad.
It's so fucking fantastic how they handled Larry.
Him giving you
Especially considering it's like
go.
It's the fact that the challenge is like this sophisticated restaurant thing.
Mm.
So naturally your brain is like, oh, this is going to be like a high class chef is going to be this gym leader. That's what's going on. We're going to have this like culinary fight.
Yeah.
So when you get the hints, when you order the food and fucking Larry stands up, you're just kind of like, oh, it's him.
That guy who gave me the initial hint was the gym leader. Well then, and then you fight him. Yeah, the boss is implied to be Gita. Yeah, his boss is implied to be Gita.
More than implied.
Yeah, she's the one who runs the entire league. And then like him giving you the facade TM at the end and being like, I hope when you're an adult you don't need to use this. And it's like, bro, who hurt you? Are you okay? Well, you're clearly not.
So fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They got him spot on perfect.
Yeah, and speaking of like just dialogue and characters who just like clearly the people who are writing this are very on the pulse. Fucking Iono. Everything around Iono, just the language she uses, her mannerisms, it's just like these people know what a streamer is. They know the lingo, they know what a streamer is. Like when she's like, because she's introducing you to the crowd right before the gym battle, and you see like the chat messages popping up on screen, and one of them says King Scarlet donated 5k Poké Dollars, and she stops mid-introduction to be like, oh, by the way, thanks for the donation. It's so fucking funny. It's so good. Absolutely perfect. Every time she's like, oh man, our viewer numbers, we're gonna have a great stream today. We're gonna rank in those viewers. We're gonna be so popular. It's amazing. It's perfect. And then you got the sixth gym, which is Tulip, the psychic gym. Her fucking gym minigame is a game of Simon Says, hosted by the battle studies teacher Dendra. Where you just
see, I found that one the most boring because it was like
it was too long.
Challenge in the loosest the loosest of ways, and you know it went on way too long and all that stuff. I just love the fact there was like Dendra was there because I think she lost a fight or something.
Yeah, because she uses fighting types and the psychic type gym leader rinsed her.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do some ESP training, which, oh my god, what the fuck did it stand for? Emotional something projection. I don't even fucking remember what it stood for. But yeah, it was some fucking occult. It was like some astrology mumbo jumbo they make you participate in before you fight Tulip. And Tulip is like she's a makeup designer, I think.
I like tits, but I have to draw the line in the sand. Tulip is the hottest woman to ever exit the Pokemon world. Holy shit! When I first saw her, I was literally speechless. My fucking jaw dropped to the floor. I was just like, holy shit! How have they done this?
Her design.
How have
incredible.
They topped everything?
Her
There,
design
I
is
don't
so
think there is
good.
a single character in Pokemon that I'd be like, yeah, they're hotter than Tulip. Just no, she is. She is it. She is it.
Her design is very, very good. I love her little wings on the dress that flap.
I think they're on her shoes as well.
Mm. And then the seventh gym challenge, intended to be
Oh wait,
the
well no, fuck getting the Tulip's gym. By the way, I could. No, I could. It took me
the
about half an hour to find that cave.
the cave. Yeah, I had at this point. So like, I did things out of order. I did the final part of the myth storyline, which is how you upgrade your legendary to be able to traverse better. I had done that
Yeah.
in like the mid 30s, so like I was able to climb up walls and shit way earlier than they intend you to be able to. So I didn't even go through the cave. I just climbed up the cliff.
That cave took ages to find.
Yeah, and then the seventh gym is on the opposite side of the fucking map. It's up in the snow area. It's the ghost type gym leader led by Rhyme, the rapper, the MC Rip, R.I.P. Fucking Jesus Christ. And her gym challenge isn't really a challenge. It's just you do 2 double battles and then you fight her, which is also a double battle. But it's I like the presentation because the point is like you're hyping up the crowd before her concert.
Yeah.
And then when she starts up her music at the beginning, there's a really, really good cut in of a Grievin dancing on top of one of the speakers, and it's really cute. That's it though. You just fight her and that's it. There's nothing really else there. And then the final gym challenge is Grusha, intended to be the final gym challenge, which he's not even a city. He's just on a ski resort.
I think I did him fourth.
Yeah, I remember you did him really early.
It was a fucking challenge. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, his whole thing is that like he used to be a professional snowboarder and he got kind of muscled into being a gym leader by Gita, and he doesn't really want to. He doesn't have any passion for it. And then you kick his ass and he's like, "You know what? Never mind. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like this."
You know what? I'm gonna fuck you up.
And then that's the end, quote unquote, of that one for now, because you're definitely not intended to go straight to the Elite Four. They are 15 levels higher than the final gym.
Oh yeah.
So you're intended to do the Team Star and Titan quest line. At this point, you're supposed to wrap those up because you intentionally, or you're supposed to be doing like all of them at the same time, kind of as you level up. Just kind of gauging like when you're supposed to do this. It's like because they all have like a set level, so like you're supposed to do Gym 1, Gym 2, or Gym 1, Titan 1 in any order, Gym 2, the first Team Star, then Gym 3 and Gym 4, Gym 3, the second Titan, second Team Star, then Gym. It's really weird. There's a chart online that shows you all the levels. But yeah, that's really it for Champion Road until you get to the Elite Four, which I guess we could just talk about now rather than later. So yeah, you meet 3 of the 4 Elite Four, because one of them is Hassel, who's your art teacher, one of them is Rika, and one of them is the 4-year-old girl Poppy. And the final Elite Four member, who is a secret, is fucking Larry.
Yep.
He has a side gig as an Elite Four member, and it's really great because he comes out and he's just like, "Yeah, I normally use normal types, but Gita said I should use a different type when I'm doing this job, so I use flying. All right, here we go." And he has a totally different team. He's so good. Oh, right. Before you actually start fighting the Elite Four, Rika gives you an interview where you have to like answer questions that seem like survey questions that Nintendo is going to be taking.
That fucking made me sweat.
Yeah.
That goddamn interview, because I was just sitting there like, oh shit, I gave an answer and now I have to actually prove that I know that. Oh no.
Yeah, thankfully,
So
they were just like, "What's the most challenging gym you fought?" And for me, it was Iono, because I actually did wipe against her once due to some bad luck. And they were just like, "Okay, what city is Iono's gym in?" I was like, "Oh, thank God, I know it's Levincia."
I was like, oh.
And then like the final question being, "Do you like Pokemon?" It's like, "Yeah, I love Pokemon."
Love the idea of just going, no.
No, I fucking hate Pokemon.
No,
Bye.
why the fuck would I?
And then I love Rika being the first Elite Four member you fight, because like you go into the Elite Four room and you're just like, where the fuck's the Elite Four member? And then the door opens and she walks past you to the location where she's gonna be fighting. She's like, surprise, motherfucker, it's me. Let's go.
Yeah. God, oh, they
And
hit
then-
it very well.
Yeah, we unfortunately both got the bug where the music didn't play properly, because the Elite Four music is one of the best tracks in the fucking game, and there's a bug that makes it not play properly.
The first 5 seconds of the song will play.
On loop.
And the reason for that is it is supposed to really kick in when the first Pokemon gets sent out. For some reason, when the first Pokemon gets sent out, the game necessarily doesn't do that check. But apparently you can fix that before starting the fight, by restarting before starting the fight.
So yeah, you just save your game, quit, start it back up, and then talk to Rika, and it should fix the issue. Which, God, I wish I knew that before I did that, because the champion theme is also bugged.
Yeah.
That's fine. Anyway, the Elite Four are pretty simple. They're just type-based teams. So, oh, right, I forgot to mention. So every single type in the game is actually represented in some way in this game, which is something I hope they continue doing going forward. Because there's the 8 gyms, and there's the 5 Titans, which are of a different type, and there's the 5 Team Star members, which are the remaining 5 types. So all 18 types have a boss, essentially. The Elite Four take 4 of the Titans types. Because you don't really get, like, a trainer boss fight with those types. The only one that's not represented is Rock, because it's too similar to Ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rika uses Ground, Poppy uses Steel, Larry uses Flying, and Hassel uses Dragon. And you actually would know Hassel uses Dragon if you did his side quest, because as it turns out, he comes from a long line of Dragon Tamer trainers.
Mm.
And his side story is about, like, trying to be forced into the family because he's, like, the next head of the family, and they keep trying to make him quit his art teacher job, and he doesn't want to because he likes teaching. But yeah, Gita muscled him into being one of the Elite Four members of his appropriate type. And then, of course...
He just muscles everyone in.
Yeah. And then, of course, the final actual champion... Well, not the final actual champion. The leader, the one who gives you your champion rank if you defeat her, is, of course, Gita. Her team is really cool. I like it. Her ace is not a Pokemon you would expect at all. It is a fucking Glimora, which is this weird alien rock poison type Pokemon that I had on my team as well. It's super cool. Not what you would expect a champion's ace to be at all. It is just not the type to be a champion ace. But it's strong and it's good, so
Hey,
more power to her.
Glimora is genuinely... Had Glimora been the first Pokemon she sent out, I would have been filled with fear.
Yeah.
Because Glimora's ability is incredibly powerful.
Yep. Like those spikes,
shockingly powerful. Because those spikes, poison spikes and stuff like that, normally isn't a big worry. Because they go away after a while. Not if it's fucking Glimora.
Nope, they just...
Glimora's spikes will stay out until you send out a poison type. And if you do have a poison type, God fucking help you.
Or a flying type, which avoids them.
Flying type, yeah. That ability is incredibly strong and is probably the only reason I could even get through certain fights in the game. Was because I basically had to rely on that fucker's ability.
Yeah, because you were really underlevel taking on most of the stuff, right?
I was for Grusha and I was for my initial Elite Four run.
Yes.
Which ended at the champion. Not the champion. It ended... Quite literally the Pokemon before the champion.
Oh,
the
you
very
read
last
Baxcalibur?
Pokemon that dragon fucker had.
Yeah, he used the pseudo-legendary Baxcalibur.
Yeah, and it just fucked me up.
It's powerful. It is the pseudo.
Yeah. But the only reason I even got that far was because of Glimora's ability.
Mm. And then, after you beat Gita, you were awarded the champion rank, but she's like, by the way, Nimona is actually the strongest trainer in the region. Nobody
Fucking
can match this
15-year-old.
fucking girl.
Fucking
Yeah,
like
but-
15-year-old is the
Yeah.
strongest person there.
But she's like, but you have a shot. So now go fight Nimona. And Nimona's the real champion fight. You fight her in the middle of the Mesagoza, which is like the main hub city of the entire thing. And there's a huge crowd. Everyone's losing their fucking minds because Nimona, the youngest champion ever, and the one nobody wants to fight because she's just too fucking good at Pokemon battling, is fighting someone on equal terms. And it ruled. The music is awesome. Her team's really cool. I like it a lot. She has Palmot and whatever. She obviously has the starter you didn't pick, but she rounds out her team with a bunch of really cool stuff. I can't remember her team right now because it's been a while since I actually fought her because I didn't get her when I did the A-Star tourney again. But yeah, just a ton of really interesting and cool stuff happens like immediately in a row. And then you beat her and you get and that's the end of that story. But you don't get credits because you have the other 2 stories to do.
Yeah.
Though you probably would get credits at that point because it's intended to be the last thing you do. So, the other, the next story is the team, Operation Starfall, or Starfall Street, I think is what it's called.
I think so.
Yeah, which is this mysterious hacker who's definitely mysterious and definitely not Penny. Don't ask. It's definitely not Penny. They don't heavily imply it's Penny or have multiple students talk about how Penny's in the STEM track and also really good with machines and a genius hacker. Don't worry about it. It's not Penny. Cassiopeia is not Penny. So you go to the first Team Star base, and you're introduced to your helper for this particular story, Clive.
Oh.
Clive is a really hip dude who is definitely not Director Clavel in an embarrassing pompadour wig. And it is the funniest fucking shit in the entire world because the first dialogue option you get is Director Clavel? And he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm Clive. Does a cool thing where he slicks back his pompadour. Funniest shit in the whole fucking world. But yeah, so essentially all the Team Star bases follow the same thing where you do a thing where you have they did not show off Penny in just one reveal and then never show her again in pre-release. Yeah, because she doesn't show up again until the end of the thing. Yeah, it's really funny. They're just like, she's important to the Team Star storyline, and then she doesn't actually show up except after every raid. She's the supply team hired by Cassiopeia.
The fucking all of the reveals in that line, it's like they're incredibly predictable, also incredibly funny.
Yeah, because like they're not meant to be actual reveals. Because every single one of the reveals, you have a dialogue option that was just like, yeah, I fucking know.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what this is. You weren't clever about it. But yeah, all the Team Star bases are. You have 10 minutes to do. You take 3 Pokemon with you, and you can send them out one at a time, or you can send out like all 3 at once and just like do the auto battle thing against Team Star members, and you have to defeat 30 Pokemon. It's really quick. It usually takes less than 2 minutes to actually do it. And then you do the boss fight against the actual Team Star captain. So the first one you're intended to do is against Giacomo, who's the dark type Team Star leader. And they all have their Team Star mobile, which is those giant fucking cars that are actually a Reveroom car being powered by 2 Charcadets.
Yeah.
But all of the so they have a team, like they'll send out 1 or 2 Pokemon, or I think the final girl has 5, doesn't she? I think Eri has 5
I can't remember.
on her team. But they send out their team, and then their final Pokemon is the car itself. It calls it Reveroom, and it acts as if it has a Terra type of whatever their type is. So, despite the fact that Reveroom is Steel Poison, it's treated like a Dark type when you're fighting it as Giacomo. And they all have a unique move that changes the type based on whatever type they're supposed to be. It's called, like, it's something Torque, like Blazing Torque, or Whimsical, or like Fairy Torque, some weird shit for all of them.
Yeah.
And it's like a raid fight. Like, they have a shit ton of health and hit pretty fucking hard. To the point where if you're under leveled, it can actually be really difficult to beat them.
Yeah.
Even on level, the Team Star fights are probably the hardest fights in the game. But yeah, they're all really cool. I like them a lot. And once you beat them, you get a small cutscene of a year and a half ago where some kind of incident happened that caused all of the Team Star members to be truants and like stop coming to school. And as you go through and fight each of the leaders, you get more and more information about what happened. You learn that the big boss of Team Star disappeared and went off somewhere and hasn't given them any kind of information since, aside from giving them Giacomo writes the code. He's the one that writes the code. Because he used to be a student council president that everyone hated because he was way too strict. So they're just like, no, like, you're not the same like, all of the other Team Star leaders are like, bro, you're not the same person you were back then. We trust you to make a code that won't be too oppressive. So he does. And as you go through, you get this sense that, like, oh, the Team Star kids are, like, the victims here, aren't they? And yeah, they absolutely are. They were all, like, horrendously bullied. And there was an incident a year and a half ago where they all stood up for themselves. And no fight actually happened because the shitheads that were bullying them were so piss baby scared, they just ran the second they saw them roll up with their fucking Team Star reveals. Yeah. And they all, like, stopped coming to school and shit. Unfortunately, this backfired gloriously, and they started getting treated as, like, the shithead bullies because they caused a bunch of kids to drop out, even though they were just defending themselves. As it turns out, their leader, who is we'll get to that, but their leader took the fall and had to spend a year and a half studying in Galar instead of at the school.
Banished to Sword and Shield.
Mm-hmm. So around the time you're doing all this is when the leader is returning, but they still haven't heard. The other leaders of Team Star didn't know this, so they were just wondering where the hell their leader's been. They've just been doing their own thing. They're all about to be expelled. So essentially, what the Cassiopeia wants is for Team Star to be destroyed because they're bullies or whatever. But as you go on, you realize more and more that Cassiopeia is the leader of Team Star, and they're doing this to get them to go back to school so they don't ruin their futures clinging on to some, like, childish bullshit. And then, like, once you beat all of them, you go back to the school because the leader of Team Star is just like, all right, meet me at the school grounds at nighttime. And then you go there and Clive is there. And Clive reveals himself to be Director Clavel, which of course you would never see coming. And he reveals that he is Cassiopeia, and he has been the one manipulating you into doing this, and you have to fight him. So you do. And it's actually a pretty hard fight, not gonna lie. And then you beat him. And he's like, well, no, I'm not actually the leader of Team Star, sorry. I just wanted to test you to make sure you were good enough. And he asks you, like, do you think Team Star is bad people? And you're like, no, of course not. I understand now that they're not bad people. They're the victims here. And he's like, good. Now that you know that, go talk to Penny, who is the actual leader of Team Star. And then you find out this was all Penny's plan. She was the one who took the fall. She's been gone for a year and a half. Director Clavel had no idea about this incident because he became director after this giant incident. All the other teachers resigned because they were so ashamed of themselves for letting this stuff happen. And it was like a huge deal. But none of the current teachers know any of this happened. They kept it very hush-hush because it was like a bunch of rich kids that got, like, fucked up over all this. So that's why everyone thinks Team Star were the bullies because, you know, rumors spread and they all dress like a bunch of delinquents because they modify their uniforms and they hang out outside school and all that kind of stuff. Then you beat Penny because she has a team of Eevees. Just her entire team is Evolutions, which is very on brand because of her backpack. And then she reveals her whole plan that she wanted to take down Team Star to get them to all coming back. She wanted to get them all to come back to school and give up on the whole Team Star thing because it was going to ruin their lives. And then all the other fucking Team Star bosses show up and say, what the why didn't you just tell us? Like, we could have just talked this out. And Penny was like, because she blamed herself for getting them all bullied because it was technically her idea that made them do that whole event and everything. Yeah, they all hug it out and they all decide to come back to school while also being members of Team Star because Director Clavel's like, I get it. I know what's going on. Like, you guys are fine, but we are going to have to talk about your tardiness and the modification of unit. And he starts listing, like, all the shit they've done wrong, and they start getting really scared. It's really funny. And then Penny reveals the fact that she basically laundered money by hacking into the league point system to get illegal credits for you. And Director Clavel's like, oh, that's like a real crime. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about this. And that's where that plot line ends for the time being.
Oh no, it ends with the reveal that the league aren't gonna take me to court. They're hiring me.
Right. Penny becomes a white hat hacker for the league because they're just like, we'll let you off with community service because clearly we need to up our security if you were able to get into it. And then Penny So you get all that. All their Team Star members are back in school, and there's some post-game stuff about them that I really want to talk about when we get to it. And then there's the Path of Legend story, which is so fucking good. God damn. During the initial reveal of all these side characters, I do not think that anyone expected Arvin to probably be the fan favorite among the actual characters that are your companions.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I'm surprised he honestly became that character.
After playing the Path of Legend storyline, everyone fucking loves Arvin, and for good reason. So essentially what you're doing is what he loves
his dog.
Yeah. What he wants to do is he wants to find these things called Herba Mystica, which are what are causing the Titan Pokemon to grow huge. They're super powerful herbs that because he's a really good cook. As he reveals, he had to do all the cooking and cleaning himself because he reveals pretty early on that Turo's his dad, right? Or that Sada's his mom, whichever.
Yeah, no.
Really? I thought it was during his storyline he reveals that.
It's not actually until the last one that is revealed.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because or maybe it might be the second to last. I know it's he only reveals it when she calls you while you're in the cave with him. Because before then, every single time you talk to her is when you're not around Arvin.
Got it. Okay. I mean, it's the way he talks about certain things make it kind of obvious that he has an absent parent because he talks about I always had to cook for myself, yada yada yada. And it's okay, so and then you notice the similarities between him and the professor with the hair color and all that, the eye shape and stuff like that, and it's just oh, okay. But yeah, so it turns out that Arvin is the kid of whatever professor is in the game. So either it's his son or it's Turo's son or Sada's son. And as you're going through, Arvin talks about how he's getting these ingredients because he wants to make a sandwich. He just wants to cook them because of their amazing healing effects. And he has the Violet Book, which talks about the amazing powers of the Herba Mystica. And the Violet Book is a plot device we'll talk about later. But he wants to use their medicinal effects. And after the first one, he's just cool, glad we did it. Let's make a sandwich, and then you feed it to your dog, and your dog is able to your dog, the lizard dog, gets better. And it's oh shit, by doing these, we can help Miraidon or Koraidon get better and get back to fighting strength, which is what Turo wanted us to do, or Sada. I'm just gonna start saying the professor. After the first one, you don't really learn anything else. It's just okay, that's what the sandwich does, cool. Arvin's really upset that the dog ate his sandwich because that was supposed to be for you, his new best friend. Whatever. The second Titan happens, and after we leave, after getting the new ability for the legendary, there is a scene where Arvin is... Does he take out his dog at that point? Or does he just say, you're gonna be... Or I need to give this to him, he'll be fine soon?
I think it's the second one, that he takes it out. Yeah.
Maybe it's at the end of the first one, he says, I need to help him get better, or something. And then on the second one, you learn who the him is. It is a Pokemon of his, a Mabostiff. Yeah, he says, you can come out now at the end of the first one. And then at the end of the second one, he, actually takes out his dog, who is, on the ground, very clearly sick and not well. And then after the third one is when he shows you his Mabostiff. And he reveals that, the whole reason he's doing this is because his dog was attacked by something and has not been well since. It's been a long time, a very long time. It can't run anymore. It can't even see, it's blind. It's very unwell. And he hopes that by feeding it all of the Herba Mystica, it will get better. And he's noticing results because when he gives it the third one, I think it opens its eyes for the first time in who knows how many years. So, like, clearly it's working.
Mm.
And he gets very emotional about this. It's just really, really good. And then the fourth one happens, and now it's able to, the Mabostiff is able to start eating, and I believe it starts vocalizing at this point, like it actually barks for the first time.
Yeah, kind of like woofs him.
Yeah, and, like, he almost breaks down at that point.
Like, oh my god, my dog is speaking to me.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's at this point he reveals that, like, it's been his pet since he was young, and he was living with a professor who was, like, his father or mother, depending. And it was, like, his best friend in the entire world. And some kind of incident happened where it was attacked by some Pokemon, and it was completely traumatized and hurt incredibly badly, and it hasn't been the same since. Then you do the final Titan, and at that point, the Mabostiff is able actually to stand up and starts, like, actively approaching and nuzzling with Arven, and he starts just, like his absolute fucking joy is just obscene. Like, he's just so happy his fucking childhood pet is back, and he's able to actually be with it again, instead of it being... Okay. Ugh.
He's got his dog.
But another very interesting thing about this particular storyline is after every single time you power up your legendary, you get a call from the professor, and he's basically just like, good work, keep going. You're doing a good job. And as this happens over and over again, something starts to feel off. The way he talks to you is so stilted. He basically is talking like a fucking computer. Like, he's just like, good work on the mission. Continue carrying out the mission and help me. Goodbye. And that's literally what he says. And it's like, I remember thinking, this is really bizarre. Like, the way he's talking is weird. I don't like it. Something is wrong. And this is when, I think I was in call, I had done, like, the fourth Titan. I was like, here's my crackpot theory. The professor's the bad guy here. He sends you off on this mission without explaining why. He wants you to get the legendary Pokemon back up to fighting strength. Something's fucking weird here. And as it turns out, I was completely right. And then at the end of the legend, the mythic one, just because, like, you can't really talk much about this. Like, there's not much to talk about as far as, like, the actual contents of the Titan storyline itself. It's really just, like, the emotional core of Arven and his dog is so good and well written that people just need to experience it. It's so good. He loves his fucking dog, man.
Man, this loves his dog.
And his father/mother was very absent when he was a child, so he had to fend for himself, and it's very sad.
Yeah.
But, I forget, does he talk about how Miraidon or Koraidon basically ruined his life, or is that in the final story?
Not to Area Zero.
Okay, that's in Area Zero. But yeah, so... the last thing he does is he takes you to the professor's old lab, which is in the lighthouse near your house. He has there's a side room in it where it's like an old lab of the professor's. And it's there that you speak to the professor again and actually see their face. And they, again, are just like, good work. I need you to come to Area Zero with the legendary and help me. I'm stuck. Thanks. And then he cuts off the transmission. And you're just like, that was fucking weird. Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't even react to Arven in the room.
Nope, he doesn't pay Arven a fucking, like, glance. It's just like, at this point I was like, oh, the professor's just an abusive dickhead. Oh my god. Which, kinda, but more absent than abusive, but and then so you can poke around the lab a little bit, and there's been books that talked about weird Pokemon in Area Zero in the crater. And there are actually 7 books, and there are 7 Paradox Pokemon per game, so you can actually find out what they all are, and it's really cool, and a neat little detail that I like a lot. They give, like, names and traits to them. Like, they're just like, the Iron Jugulus looks like a weird robotic Hydreigon. It destroyed entire towns. And like Iron
Just big
Treads
machine
killed one
dragon.
of Iron Treads killed one of the expedition team members. Whoops.
Yeah, I do love the fact that they they just have that statement of like, yeah, this thing caused a mortal wound on someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Just
they're dead
casually,
now.
casually talk about how it actually fucking killed somebody. But then the
They're
last
gone.
thing that happens there is Arvin challenges you to a fight, and you do a fight against his full team with his fucking boss tape, which is a monster. His boss tape is
God,
so strong.
that was a fucking rough one at first. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, that took 2 attempts for me.
I barely beat it the first time I tried. I had to cheese it a little bit by using a Pokemon that resisted it and boosting its strength using X items.
Yeah.
Fuck
The
me.
first, because the Path of Legends was the first one where I went to the end one, so I was like over 10 levels under level.
Yeah. So yeah, you fight Arvin, and it's a genuinely difficult fight. And then Arvin's like, okay, well, if we're gonna go to Area Zero and rescue my parent, I guess we're gonna need a bigger team. Me, you, someone of champion rank, and someone who's really good with machines.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay. So clearly you're meant to go and finish up, if you haven't already, Penny and Demona's storylines. Because at that point, once you finish all 3 storylines, you get credits. Maybe you get credits just for beating Demona, actually. I don't know. 'Cause I
only
did it
really
last
recall getting
anyway.
credits when I did Area Zero.
Don't you get... Do you not get credits for beating the 3 storylines? Is it only once you beat Area Zero?
I think it's only when you get Area Zero, yeah, because
I thought you only got the Ed
credits is
Sheeran
when-
song.
the credits is when you get the 5-star raids.
Oh, God. For whatever reason, I thought it was like a post-game thing. Okay, never mind. So yeah, you get credit. You don't get credits. But once you finish all 3, I think Arvin calls you. I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does.
And it's just like, hey, we've got a team. We're going to meet up here. And then you go, and of course, Nimona and Penny are there, and they're like, we're going to help. So you all decide to go to Area Zero, which is a horribly dangerous location located in the giant crater in the center of the map. Where if you read the Violet book, which is just available in the school, that you can, it talks about, or if you took the history classes, because those are also available, and they talk about the lore of the region. There was an expedition 200 years ago, led by a man named Heath. And they went into the crater and discovered a bunch of really fucked up shit down there. There were weird Pokemon, and there were they couldn't figure out why exactly the crater had appeared. They discovered the terastallization crystals and all that good stuff. And then there's a sketch on the last page of this giant disc made of interlocking hexagons with some kind of like dragonfish behind it. And the assumption is that is the 3rd legendary and some kind of alien creature that slammed into the region and caused the crater 2,000 years ago or something. Because the history teacher also talks about the ancient Paldean Empire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where you learn all this side information that you don't have to learn, but it's really interesting lore for the region, and I vastly appreciate them putting it in the game. They've been doing this more often recently, where they put like lore at all.
Actually teaching us about the world.
Yeah. So yeah. So you decide to go down to Area Zero. You go to the elevator to it, and while you're there, the professor gives you another call. And this is the call that solidified, like, for me, that something was definitely wrong. And so, God, the only way I can describe this is really, really good writing. And I'm saying this as someone who, like, I'm not smart. I'm not, like, smarter than a normal person. I'm just of average intelligence and all that kind of stuff. I just have pretty good media literacy because I consume fuckloads of media constantly. And essentially, what happens is Arvin figures out what's going on at the exact same time that you, the player, are supposed to realize that something is fucked up and wrong. Because the professor calls you, and it's a really weird conversation where he's just, like, giving you orders like he's like you're a fucking soldier. And he's just like, do this, now do this, good, process complete, like weird shit like that. And Arvin has a small aside dialogue being like, oh fuck, really? Like, oh, so now, like, so that's what's happening. And like, clearly he knows something is wrong, but he's not 100% sure yet. And it happens at the exact same time that you, the player, are probably figuring out something is wrong, but you're not 100% sure yet. And that's a sign of really, really good writing, because it's really, really well written and paced perfectly for that to happen. But I digress. I just wanted to talk about that because I really appreciated it. But you go down into the crater, and you enter the most incredible section of any Pokemon game that has ever existed, which is the Area Zero section of this game. So
Area Zero was definitely
like,
Area Zero is kind of the closest to like a Xenoblade experience they get in this game.
yeah, you go down there, and the first thing you notice is that Nimona, Arvin, and Penny are with you on the field, walking around with you, which is amazing. They just follow you. Like, you have a JRPG party with you, and you're walking around this open area that is instanced, so it runs well, and has really good music. Very, like, almost alien-sounding music, appropriately.
Mm.
But it's really good, and as you're walking around, the NPCs have conversations about various things related to what they're doing right now, which I cannot stress enough is the best character building tool that this kind of game has available to it, and they need to keep doing it, because you get so much character out of these conversations. Like, you find out Nimona's the child of a rich family, and she hates that fact and doesn't like people bringing it up. You get Arvin being incredibly bullyable, Penny being a little bit of a shithead to Arvin. It's really, really good, and I love it. It's so perfect. But yeah, you start making your way down the crater into the bottom. The professor's like, there are 4 locks you have to undo for me to be able to, like, get out of where I am right now. I'm trapped in the lab at the base of the crater. So you go down. As you're approaching the labs, you get attacked by Pokemon. The first time you just get attacked by a Glamora, I think. The second time, you get attacked by one of the Paradox Pokemon, which is either the past or future Pokemon. So in Violet, you get attacked by Iron Bundle, which is a futuristic Delibird. And what do you get attacked by in Scarlet? Because I actually don't know.
It's like Scary Tail, which is a past Jigglypuff, which is the really big like ponytail.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you get attacked by one of them, and every character's like, what the fuck was that? They are so confused and just don't know what's happening. Which is interesting, because that means that whatever Pokemon attacked Arvin's dog was not one of the Pokemon you encounter, because he doesn't have any PTSD flashbacks to his dog being brutalized.
That is saved to my crackpot theory.
Yep. Yeah. Same here. I have ideas. But also, while you're going down here, it's revealed that the reason Arvin really, really hated the Legendary was because once his parents' work got this Legendary, because of what they're doing down in the crater, their parent basically started ignoring Arvin entirely to focus entirely on research. So Arvin views the Legendary as having ruined their childhood, because they basically did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not the Legendary's fault, but the Legendary is the reason Arvin's childhood was fucking miserable and he had an absent parent. A non-existent parent, basically.
Yeah, it could have been better.
But yeah, so as you're going out, you get attacked by more of the Paradox Pokemon. You start seeing them. Team Rocket Jesse. Yeah, basically. You start seeing more of the Paradox Pokemon, and you can actually capture them at this point and learn up like what their deal is. Not really, because all their dex entries are basically just like, this resembles a creature described in one of those Occultra books. That's weird.
Yeah, dex entries definitely could have been a bit better on the
I mean, I get it.
Paradox Pokemon, but yeah, I can
makes
see
sense 'cause
why it's quite simple.
They're undiscovered, so there wouldn't be dex data for them.
I think the closest is Jigglypuff's one, which is this resembles like what it was believed a Jigglypuff looked like a billion years ago or something.
Okay. Yeah, so you continue going on down. There are also little like notebooks and logs in each of the labs that a lock is tied to, and you can read them. And it's basically the professor's notes talking about, I just don't have enough time. I don't have enough personnel. Like, this project is way too important. If only there was someone at my level. And then a later log is like, I finally found a way to get someone at my level. It's improved my efficiency tenfold or something, yada, yada, yada. And, like, I think that's the last log you see, is when they were just like, I've made a breakthrough. I found a way to get someone that's at the same caliber as me to help.
Yeah.
And then the logs stop. The last lab you go to is really, like, destroyed. Like, the fourth lab. It's just, like, it's completely ruined. And the implication is that something happened there that was very bad. Because, like, there's crystals busting into the fucking building, and half the shit's broken, and all stuff like that. But yeah, so... And then you go down to the final lab, and the professor mentions that there's probably something really pissed off waiting inside. So, be ready before you open it. And you're like, cool, thanks. Glad you're telling me that when I'm here.
Here's a warning, buddy.
So you do it.
Could've
You
come
open
a
it
bit
up.
sooner.
Yeah. You open it up, and, like, 16 Paradox Pokemon fucking flood out of the thing. And you have a bunch of team battles with every one of your party members and stuff like that. And then you rush on in.
Double battles that happen in this entire game.
Yeah. Even though they're not even double battles, they're 2v1s. But yeah, and then once they've got everything else handled, you rush inside to help out the professor. And then you get inside, and you see the professor not moving, just sitting in a chair, like, completely still. And at that point, it clicked for me exactly what was going on. And as it turns out, the professor you've been talking to is an exceedingly complex AI the real professor made to mimic their being, which is why they talked about having found someone who was on their level in the notes, because they basically made an artificial copy of themselves to assist in their research. And the thing they were researching was a fucking time machine.
Oh boy.
Yeah. They also reveal that the original professor died a while ago. They threw it was the accident that destroyed the fourth lab. They threw themselves in front of the legendary to protect it, and they died. They are dead. Arvin's parent is dead and has been dead for quite a long time at this point. Unless it was supposed to be a recent accident.
Life, I think.
Was it?
I think it might have been the majority of Arvin's life, maybe.
At this point, yeah. Because I think Arvin mentions...
remember the time scale is.
I want to say it's been like 10 years, he said, since he's seen his parent. About 10 years.
He mentions, like, the first time when she calls you, when he's in the cave with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think he mentions, like, that's the first time he's heard her voice in years.
Yeah. So, yeah, Arvin's parent has been dead for a very long time. And they passed away protecting the legendary, which is, tragic. It fucking sucks. And it's just like, oh, fuck, wow, all right, we're going there? That actually... Okay, well. All right. And it's just like...
That I found out on the week of my granddad's funeral.
Yeah, I can only imagine that must have hit exceedingly more hard. And it was just like... Because, like, as you're going down, that creeping feeling is just like, the professor's dead, aren't they? Like, something in the back of my mind was just like, the professor's definitely dead. Something happened, and the professor is dead.
It's in the fourth lab when she calls you, and the entire message fucks up.
Yeah, it gets all glitched out and
like, and she passes it off as, oh, sorry, there was a connection issue. But I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, a connection issue doesn't do that. A connection issue makes it hard to understand someone. It does not repeat their message tenfold and then crackle it up a ton. That's not how that works.
Yeah. So, you find out they're an AI. There's also a small thing on the side. It talks about how the professor has developed a Pokeball ID lock system where you can lock Pokeballs that aren't from a specific trainer ID. This is important.
This will be important later. We'll use this again. Don't worry.
In like 20 minutes.
This
And
will
then
pay
you,
dividends in the sequel, Gordon.
yeah, so you follow the AI version of the professor who's like existing in like a cybernetic body or something into the time
Robot body.
machine. Was that?
A robot body, I believe
Yeah,
she
yeah.
actually calls it.
Mhm. Yeah, you follow them into the actual time chamber or like the time machine chamber, and they're just like, so in order to shut this thing down, you're going to need to insert the violet book because that's likely like that was an object very precious to the professor, and it's likely what they would use as key. And then they say, just so you know, when you try and do this, you're probably going to have to fight me because the system is not going to let this thing get shut down. And then you do it, and that's exactly what fucking happens. In one of what I can only describe as the coolest fucking, like, boss transitions in any of these fucking games. Where the AI is just like, no, the Paradise Protection Program has kicked in. We are not going to let you shut down this device. It locks everyone's Pokeball. Or no, that happens after, sorry. So, the AI professor gets, like, raised up on this huge center platform. And then it says at the bottom of the screen, like, the text pops up. It says, you are challenged by Professor whatever. And then everything starts, like, glitching out and getting fucked up. And the text...
That's after.
Is that after?
Yeah, that's after the initial Seda fight.
Wait, what?
At first, you do the Seda fight, where it's you're fighting the AI security program. And she'll go through and she'll send out all those Paradox Pokemon with her Master Balls.
Right, sorry. It's the second fight that happens in.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
it's the second fight that then you fight the Paradise Protection Program.
Yeah, so you do the initial fight where they send out 6 of the 7 Paradox Pokemon, including the one you haven't seen yet, which is the final one that's like a separate dex entry. For Violet, it's the Iron Valiant, which is a mecha combination of Gardevoir and Gallade that uses a double-sided glaive. It's fucking awesome. It has like the blades on its arms, and when it attacks, it pops the blades out, and like a staff joins them. It's the coolest fucking shit in the world. Amazing design. And I know for Scarlet, it's the Salamence, right?
Yep, it's the Salamence, which is actually a pretty cool design because it riffs off of Mega Salamence a little.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good ass design. But then you beat it. You beat AI Turo or Sada, and you're like, cool, we can shut it down now. And then all hell breaks loose. Yep. Where the AI, the Paradise Protection Program kicks in, and the AI says specifically, was this really that important to them that they would go this far?
They say, the AI says, is this time machine really all she cared about?
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. So it's like, it implies that...
To me, that one hits a lot harder because it's just like...
Yeah.
It genuinely was like nothing else mattered to her than just this time machine.
So yeah, the implication here is that the professor really didn't care all that much about Arven. Despite the fact that the AI says, I contain all of their memories, they did love you. And then this happens, and it's just like, oh. Oh no. I think the AI was just lying to make Arven feel better. And then it has the cool thing where it says you are challenged by Professor or AI Professor, whatever. And then it glitches out and the text changes to you are challenged by the Professor or the Paradise Protection Program. And it's really fucking cool. And the best final boss theme I think I've ever heard in a Pokemon game starts playing. Clearly, very clearly written by Toby Fox. And then it locks all your Pokeballs. The ID lock comes into effect. It says specifically, locking all Pokeballs not assigned to Professor Turo's ID. And then Turo sends out, or Turo doesn't send anything out, or yes it does. It sends out Miraidon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Paradise Protection Program sends out Miraidon, which there was another Miraidon, or Koraidon, depending, which was far more aggressive, and is what chased out your legendary. Because it lost in a fight, a territorial dispute, and chased your legendary out of the cave. Yeah, basically. And this one's like aggressive and angry all the time. And then So you get like a battle menu, just like you try to send out a Pokemon, it's like you can't, your Pokeball's locked. You try to go to your bag and it's just like, what the fuck are you gonna use your items on? You try to run and it's like, you can't run from this. And then you go to your Pokemon menu, and in your Pokemon menu throughout the entire game, at the very bottom, under your team, Miraidon was there, or Koraidon, as like a button you could hit to start riding them because they were your mount. Now, at the end of the game, if you go down and click on them, it brings up the option to send them into battle, because originally it was the professor's Pokemon, so their ball isn't locked. And it's one of the coolest fucking things I've ever seen in a Pokemon game. It's so good. It's it hits really hard when you like realize what you're supposed to do. It gives you a visual flair, and you send out Miraidon, and it essentially starts like a Titan fight where it's your legendary versus their legendary. And throughout the, like, you use a couple moves, and it's like your terrestrialization is building up, even though you're not supposed to be able to use it right now. Your teammates are giving little like encouraging shouts that buff up your legendary. I think it can't get knocked out. I don't know because I never got to that point.
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to get knocked out myself.
But there's a point where the enemy or the opposing legendary uses its signature move, and it has to like recharge the turn after, and it's like, go, do it now, and you get to use like a terrestrialized move and just fucking obliterate the thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so fucking cool. It's so cool. It's such a cool final fight. And just the fact that the professor, all his Pokemon are in Master Balls. And like, when you're fighting them, they're up on this huge elevated platform, and then like, they take out a Master Ball and just kind of like lazily throw it down. It's so good. It's like this really imposing angle on them, like sending out each Pokemon.
They really mastered how the energy that fight should have, even.
The music is just fucking incredible. God, what a good fucking finale. Like, the entire finale section is so unbelievably good. I couldn't even believe it was from the same game. Because, like, I really enjoyed the game. Like, it's up there with my favorites for Pokemon games. Like, the technical issues really hold it back from being, like... If this game ran, like, perfectly, like, it didn't have any technical issues, this would be my favorite Pokemon game, bar none. Like, it's so good. There's so much good stuff in this game. Just, like, the characters are amazing. The writing is really solid. I enjoyed every plot line for one reason or another. The gym leaders are fun. The side characters are fun. There's post-game stories where you get to catch up with Nimona, Arvin, and Penny to see, like, what they're going to be doing from this point on. For Penny, it's like she's checking in on all the Team Star members to see if they're being able to acclimate to the school correctly in a bunch of really comedic scenes of them, like, doing various things, like Giacomo screaming to everyone, hello, how are y'all doing? Like, we'll be here all week. He, like, does, like, a fucking concert announcement thing. Mela being really aggressive about joining the art club and saying, I saw those shitty finger painting of Pokemon, and I was like, oh shit, anyone can do this. I may as well try. And then, like, Arvin being like, I think I'm gonna become a cook. Like, it's something I'm good at. I don't want anything to do with, like, the professor, like, what they did. Like, I appreciate their work and everything, but it's not what I want to do. So I'm gonna become a cook, and I'm gonna take the world by storm and all that kind of stuff. And Nimona's just like, let's fucking fight. Let's go right now. Let's fight.
Fight me, motherfucker.
Fight me anytime. It's, oh god, it's all so good. It's so good. And then there's the Ruinous Pokemon, which we didn't even fucking talk about because it's side content that you wouldn't even know about.
Yes.
So there's a really cool
Pokemon.
There's a really interesting, like, in my opinion, the best side legendaries they've ever had, design-wise especially, where there are these weird gates you can find throughout the world, and when you examine them, it says, like, here lies the ruinous something. And if you do all the history lessons, your history teacher actually talks about the 4 treasures that were given to the previous emperor of Paldea, and those treasures were like they were possessed by like negativity during the fall of the Empire and evil spirits, and they morphed into treasure Pokemon that are filled with malice. And it's like there's the ruinous vessel, the ruinous sword, the ruinous beads, and the ruinous tablets. And she's like, oh, by the way, they're apparently sealed around the region by these like stakes you can find in the ground, and you can find them from the beginning of the game. They're just like in like either hard to reach places or like tucked into corners and stuff, and they're separated by color and the region of the map. And if you pull out all 8 in a region, it unlocks the door, and you can actually fight the ruinous Pokemon and catch them. And these are some of the coolest fucking designs Pokemon has ever had. They're like Ultra Beasts in that they look very alien and not like Pokemon, which is appropriate because they're not really.
Yeah, they're more akin to things that became alive.
Mm-hmm.
Is what the game very much indicates that they are.
Mm. And they
God, these?
They look so fucking cool.
They really do.
And they all have Chinese names for some reason. I'm assuming it might be a hint that the next region is intended to be China, because they mentioned that it was a foreign merchant came to the Emperor of Paldea and offered these 4 treasures, and the Emperor of Paldea gave them like a fuckload of gold. So maybe they're implying that the China region is next. Maybe. Or that a China region exists. Kind of like they did in Gen 6, where they had the Tiki statue that one guy gave you to allude to Alola.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like
there's that's what their idea is.
Mm-hmm. Like they all have names. Like the seals are called like the Grass Wither. God, they all have like names of like the type of the, because all the Pokemon are egg type and then dark type. It's a grass dark, ground dark, fire dark, and ice dark. And they all have a unique ability where they reduce a specific stat of all Pokemon except themselves. So like one of them is the attack of everything but the attack of all Pokemon except this one is down. The special attack of all Pokemon, and then special defense and defense. And it's like that Pokemon's best stat. It reduces all the other Pokemon in the battle's stats. And they all have a unique move called Ruination, which is just a half HP move, which, goddamn.
Another one.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all super, super cool. I love their designs. They're all really interesting.
They're definitely up there for me with the Regis, because Gen 4 had a lot of side legendaries, of course, but a lot of them had not. Heatran had a story going for it, and it had the explanation as to what happened to Team Galactic, and I did like that. But for the like getting them all, there wasn't like a real method of unlocking them, with the Regis kind of having the only one going for it, where you had to decode the Braille and then get the particular Pokemon or do the particular methods to then get access to the chamber. This is kind of like one of the few times where I think the side legendaries had something where you had to do like a puzzle or just something in order to actually get access to them, which I
encouraged
prefer over them just laying around.
Yeah, it encouraged the main point of the game, which was exploration.
Yeah.
Because you had to explore the region like with a fine-toothed fucking comb to find these godforsaken stakes. Oh, God, how many? We spent an entire day doing 3 of them, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, we spent an entire day doing the snail, the moose, and the fish. Which, by the way, there's finally a moose Pokemon. It's one of these legendaries. It's the Ruinous Vessel. God, I don't want to say. I think its name is Ting Lu. I want to say that's this one.
Remember.
I don't remember. But yeah, they're all super, super cool looking. And when you get them, you actually talk to the history professor. Like, her post-game story is about finding these things. And it's just like, oh shit, you found them. Sick. Here's the nasty plot, TM.
Yeah. Which is still funny, because I genuinely thought you're going to get more.
Yeah, I mean, nasty plot's a really good move.
It's a good movie. It's just like, Oh,
I
that
think the
is.
reward is the level 60 legendaries you get.
Oh, that of course. Where it's like, woman, I just like discovered fucking history. I just discovered Pokemon that have been sealed away, and you give me a disc.
You give me a fucking CD that has a Teehee special attack sharp boost on it that I immediately taught to
Yeah,
my Goldango.
I
Oh,
know
God.
the Ruinous Pokemon are definitely up there with like
Hmm.
side legendary content. I'm just glad to have another game where there are actual side legendaries in the game.
Yep, that you can actually do.
Yeah,
And again, like,
and Sword
the
and Shield didn't
story
have any of those.
the story isn't done. Specifically
No.
during Arvin's post game story stuff, he talks about, hey, the last page of the Violet book talks about this weird fucking disc Pokemon. That's kind of weird, isn't it?
He
Also,
also yeah.
he's just like, the time machine bullshit doesn't make any sense, huh? That's weird. Anyway,
Which is funny because I saw someone talking about that one of their gripes of the story is like you start thinking about it, starts falling apart, and I'm like, yeah, that's the point.
yeah,
Even the character's like, how the fuck did the ancient Pokemon get here before the time machine? If the time machine was what brought them here.
exactly.
Like
Because,
even the
like,
game references like this doesn't make any
yeah,
sense.
because during the expedition, someone was killed by a Paradox Pokemon. And the
Yeah.
time machine didn't exist until 10 years ago. So, like, how the fuck did they get here? And there's also in the book, there's a sketch of a combination legendary where in Violet, it's a combination of the Three Musketeers. It's a combination of Virizion, Cobalion, and Terrakion that looks super cool, and I'm super excited for them to definitely make it real. They fucking better. And I know in Scarlet, it's a combination of the dogs, right? Entei,
Can't
Suicune, and
remember.
Raikou. But yeah, it's a combination of like three Pokemon, and it's like the author's like, this is what I imagine a Pokemon down here might look like, but it's weird. And then Arvin's like, man, this book has a bunch of pictures. They all sound fake. It's cool though.
Yeah. Like it's very clear that for this game they're setting up the DLC to be a brand new addition to the story and to be like because in they mention the third legendary in this game. There's even the book that's like, oh, thanks to the power of this thing,
Yeah, its name is
we're
blocked
able
out.
to harness and create the time machine. But you can't find it anywhere down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no sign of where it is. There's nothing down there. And it's also, yeah, the question of, well, how the hell did the Paradox Pokemon get here if they were only just brought through from the time machine? Because when she first goes down there, she doesn't mention like um a bunch of them pouring around or stuff. And so my theory for the third legendary is that it manipulated her into making that time machine.
Interesting. Okay.
Because a time machine in the Pokemon world is a very big deal. It's a very big thing considering that you have a god of time. But my main thought process is that question of how the hell did those things get down there if the time machine wasn't real? 'Cause it's not like it's a place where there is any kind of specialness to it that would lead to it. It would be a massively Jurassic area because you've got regular ass Pokemon walking around down there.
Yeah.
You've got ones that are just standard to the region. Why would these very specific ones be the exception to that rule? And if why would they not be much more documented? Why would they seemingly be this rare thing? Um, and I think it's possible that she didn't make a time machine. She made something else entirely because you realize no one actually enters the time machine. They even state that no one goes through. Anyone that does go in has no way of getting back. The only things we've sent are Pokeballs.
Right.
And the only person that is known to go through it is an AI.
Right at the end of the story, they opt to send themselves to the future or past, depending.
Yeah. So we have no idea what the actual fate of her was. Which raises the question of, is it a time machine or is it something else that can summon these creatures that maybe this freak of nature creates or something? Because it's also the question of, I mean, obviously the future Pokemon will possibly be a design decision, but I also like to think of like, what? Why is it in the future that all Pokemon are like mechanical?
Yeah, they're all
You know,
mechanical in nature.
what's all this about? And things like that. It's just something where I don't think it's going to be a time machine. I think the reveal is going that it is going to have been some other thing that she all this time she was thinking that she was making a time machine and she was bringing all these Pokemon around, when really this entity was trying to summon these creatures for his own reasonings, which is why they are all so incredibly strong
Mm-hmm.
in comparison to their modern day counterparts.
And on top of that, so the professor mentions that it's due to the power of, and the name is blacked out. Also, in
Mm.
the last page of the Violet book has an extended passage about this disc Pokemon, as they call it. And it's just like the entire passage is essentially just like, this thing's fucking weird. Like, I don't get it. What is this? We can't understand it, etc., etc. I also, just thinking about it right now, based on the way they describe the disc Pokemon, its appearance is suspiciously similar to the inner working of the time machine. All those like reflective
Yeah.
terrestrialized panels arranged in the way they are.
Mm.
So it's like, oh, fuck, man. There's
I might have a theory that that third legendary is a universe. And what the time machine actually is, it is a way to grab life to and from that universe. Like not particular universe, or maybe something else entirely. Maybe sort of a fracture of history or the future, something along those lines. But I think the time machine isn't traveling in time, but it is traveling to whatever is inside that thing, and that is why it is so essential to making the time machine run.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Because that
mean,
is because when you look at it, it looks like when you look at it in the drawing, because every each drawing generally looks quite accurate to what the final product looks like.
yeah,
So when you see that thing in the drawing, it's just kind of like, what is that? Because it looks like a big orb with a dragon crawling around it. And I think that's what's going to happen is the orb creature itself is that storage for whatever is in there,
hmm,
and the dragon is the guardian of it. I think that is how it is going to go, and I think that might be why the Pokemon were all wandering around beforehand, was because it was able to release them on its own, but potentially maybe it couldn't control it very well, or maybe those Pokemon were just exceptions that managed to escape it. And that is why Area Zero is also such a massive crater, but such a dangerous thing as well. Because you look in Galar, which had another case of a Pokemon from space.
yeah,
When that thing crash landed, it didn't cause nearly that much damage to the region, but seemingly this thing was enough to take out about a
yeah, like,
good a good like third of the region. It was able to blast this absolutely massive hole into it
hmm,
and cause everlasting damage to it and create this incredibly dangerous area. So clearly, whatever this thing is, the strength behind it is something else. So I think that might be what it's going to be, is she's not grabbing life from a different part of time. She's grabbing it from whatever is in this creature.
okay, yeah, like I honestly don't know, because like whatever thing crash landed this third legendary is also the source of terrestrialization, because they're
Mm.
harnessing the crystals from it. Yeah, because they're harnessing the power of it in order to allow for terrestrialization, or the crystals that spawned from it, rather. Either spawned from it, or its energy after crashing is what allowed the crystals to exist, because they only exist in this crater near where it apparently crashed, because we have like that massive crystal at the very bottom that the lab was built into, or the time machine was built into, allegedly. And yeah, because when the thing activates at the end, we don't actually see anything happen.
Yeah.
Like, the professor disappears, but that's all we see. They just disappear. It's...
Like, I think it's going to be the reveal that, like, now that the time machine has been stopped and everything, I think the DLC story might cover maybe it becomes restless again, because before the time machine was being utilized, it was being sort of kept over by the AI Satyr. It had, like, a sort of a caretaker in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if the DLC story might deal with the aftermath of what happened in the crater, and how now that the time machine is gone, now that the Pokemon are being summoned up, and now the AI Satyr is no longer around, that Pokemon is just starts going out of control. Because the mystery is also what attacked Arven's dog,
Right, yeah, we
because
still don't know.
That is still never addressed, because he even sees the Paradox Pokemon and he has no reaction, to the point where he even brings out Mostiff and fights other Paradox Pokemon using it.
Yeah, which
So it's
would not
very
fly
clear that
otherwise.
the two of them don't have any sort of fear of the thing, and they even see the additional Koraidon, which is a big indicator that Koraidon wasn't the one to attack him. And he even states that what attacked him seemed to be something that was going out of control,
Mm-hmm.
which raises the question of what was down there, because he doesn't react to any of Sada's team either. He
Mm-hmm.
reacts to absolutely no he doesn't mention a single one of them in particular. So it's very clear that what we dealt with was Pokemon that he had only just seen for the first time. So what else is down there? What was the thing that was going out of control that attacked him?
Oh boy, there's so much meat to dig into with this fucking plot. It's so good.
Yeah, this is the first time where really we're left with a
Questions.
massive
Yeah.
cliffhanger and questions and mysteries.
Like, I'm glad they've been doing this, because Arceus 2 had like a bunch of lore that you could find out, like about how Arceus genocided the entire like population of the continent and stuff like that, and was doing it. What preventing that again is the whole like thrust of the plot of the game and all that. And
Yeah,
like now we have this where it's just like something is down in that pit doing some fucked up shit and is the cause of all this stuff,
it's
and we still don't know what it is.
it's so weird to me how Sword and Shield had absolutely no story to its name until like Crown Tundra, whereas Sun and Moon, Arceus, and this game all have an incredible amount of story and all try to build on this world
Mm-hmm.
that they have. And it makes me wonder what went on during Sword and Shield's development that led to it having zero story whatsoever. Because I'd say Masuda, but the thing is, he was involved in all four games I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's not like he stepped in specifically for Sword and Shield and went, no, no story. And I part of me wonders if that was. Part of me wonders if Sword and Shield was because they saw people's gripes with Sun and Moon, um, and were like, "Oh, people don't want story in a Pokemon game." Then they went through Sword and Shield and they saw the reaction. They went, "Oh, it's not that people didn't want story; it's that they didn't like how we did it."
It's like I think Ultra actually had a lot of like was part of the reason why too, because like Ultra
Oh, that had to be it.
butchered the Sun and Moon story. It made it
Mm.
significantly worse, and people hated it. Well, people whose opinion matter hated it, like mine. And just like I feel like that's also part of the reason they backed away from having a real plot, was because like the negative reaction to Ultra Sun Ultra Moon's like overall plot was so heavy that they were just like, okay, we're not fucking touching it. And then of course Sword and Shield happened, where there wasn't a plot, and people were just like, this game has no plot. There's really nothing for me to latch onto here. Like, it just fucking, yeah. But we got it again, and it's really good.
We got the story has returned, and fuck me, it's returned strong.
They better hold on to these writers for dear fucking life.
Yeah.
Oh god. All right. Is there any closing thoughts here? So I think we've talked about
more employees.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Tips to Game Freak: double your staff, double your development time. It'll fix the majority of the issues people have with your fucking games. Stop relying on contractors.
People, stop fucking saying this company's lazy. Play the games if you genuinely think they're lazy. You'll be proven wrong immediately.
The technical
Not that they're
issues,
lazy, it's that they're understaffed and undertimed.
It's like, the technical issues do not stem from the devs themselves being bad. They stem almost exclusively, in all likelihood, from piss poor management.
Yeah.
And people like Junichi fucking Masuda, who, thank God, left Game Freak in June of this year. Now he's in some upper management position at the actual Pokemon company, so hopefully he won't have all that much influence on the games themselves.
They won't be handed off to an old fossil either, who has the same principles. There'll be some fresh blood who can bring in something new to the franchise. Please, God, breathe fresh blood who can bring something new into the franchise. Please.
If they use Scarlet and Violet as a basis going forward, if this is the structure of Pokemon games from now on, where all 18 types are represented with multiple storylines, you can go through whatever pace you want, perfect. This is like the peak of what I think these games can achieve using a standard Pokemon formula. If you want to really up the ante, give us proper traveling companions next time. You clearly fucking want to. You gave us 3 during the final story segment. And like,
even had a system for how they interact and followed you.
Yeah, like, you had skits. They're great. Keep doing that. But like, hire more staff so the games run well.
My only real gripe final going from this game is one simple thing. And that is the fact that I was proven correct and that this game would not top Giratina.
Really? You don't think so? I guess it can't.
Huh?
It can't. Yeah, there's no third legendary.
Well, there's no third legendary, but it's also like that fight from Arceus is still my favorite fight in any Pokemon game yet. And I hope maybe the DLC, maybe the showdown with the third legendary will be the one to beat that, but only time will tell on that matter.
I want to say I enjoyed this one more, only because it had the Undertale ass mechanic of having to go into your menu and realizing you could still select Miraidon to send it out. That was just so fucking good. But like, it's really tough to beat the fake out knockout into the heartbeat drop phase transition.
It's tough to beat 8 Pokemon in a row.
Yeah. God, yeah, it's really. I think the presentation of the final boss in this was a step above, just because of like the camera angles and the music and just the text glitching out to reveal that it's the Paradise Protection Program fighting you, not the AI. It's like, oh god, beautiful, masterfully fucking done. I think the only real downside was the fact that it was a mirror match of your legendary as like the true final fight. Like, even if the presentation was really cool, it was just 2 lizards hitting each other. That's why I am very excited for the hopeful DLC that will hopefully continue this plot line they've clearly left open for this third legendary that could potentially be like a world-ending threat. And like, who knows? Like Box said earlier, maybe we are going back to fucking Fallers. Maybe we're getting our different dimensions again. Maybe they're finally picking up that plot line from fucking 5 years ago where they just left it hanging for no reason.
God, please. Now that there's clear that there's that ambition. Please, God, let it be lived on.
Foster the ambition, let it grow, let the new blood use their ideas. I'm fucking begging you, get those fucking fossils out of Game Freak as a company.
Yeah.
Give them ceremonial positions where they can't actually touch anything, kind of like they've a little bit done for Miyamoto.
Yeah.
He's not really allowed to touch it anymore. Anyway, I think the lesson we can all... I'm going to hit stop recording the second I finish saying this, just so you know. The lesson we can all take away from this is Junichi Masuda fucking retire, bitch.